Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we're releasing a special episode. This is a collection of interviews that was taken from the attendees of the Collaborative Science Conference that was held in Las Vegas, Nevada on March 14th through 16th in 2024. This conference was hosted by Dave Feldman, who has started the Citizen Science Foundation, and this is the first annual conference of this kind. So I decided it would be really fun to take some experiences from the attendees of this show. So before we get into these interviews, I just want to kind of tee this up a little bit and say that as soon as I saw that this conference was being held by Dave Feldman, I was so excited to join. It's very easy for me to get down to Las Vegas. It's not too far away from Salt Lake City, so really quick flight and really easy to get around. And just knowing Dave Feldman and his work, we've been fortunate enough to host him on our show. I believe it was episode 108 with Dr. Nick Norwitz on that episode as well. I just knew that this would be something that I really wanted to be a part of. And as soon as I signed up for it, I realized that the attendance fee for going to the show was actually just a donation to Dave's foundation, which again is the Citizen Science Foundation. The Citizen Science Foundation is really dedicated to doing the research that is very much needed to move the field forward as far as like cholesterol and heart disease and how it relates to low carbohydrate diets, which if you know anything about Dave Feldman, you know has been an absolute passion of his for almost a decade now. And so it was really cool that I was able to donate to them to be able to go to the show. I'm very happy to make a donation to them as well because they are doing like so much research. If you've heard anything about lean mass hyperresponders and all the cholesterol research that Dave is doing surrounding LDL, it's quite amazing the work that he does. So anyway, I decided to attend this conference. Pretty easy decision. I decided to stay at the exact hotel where this is being held, so I get to be on site this year. A little bit more expensive, but I decided to budget for that this year. And as soon as I signed up for the conference, I saw that this conference is using an app called WHOVA, WHOVA, which you probably heard me talk about in the past. Low Carb Denver 2023 used this app, and I just have to say, what an amazing app that really enhanced the experience of attending any kind of conference. I would highly, highly, highly recommend if you have anything to do with any conferences, whether you're hosting or attending, I would definitely check out WHOVA as an app because it is so much fun to be able to not only see what your agenda is, to be able to reserve spots for certain things, to see where the breakout sessions are, but also you get to see all of the attendees. The app will ask you icebreaker questions, so you can start to kind of put your name out there and start to get introduced to a whole bunch of new people, which is kind of great to be able to network. And you get to communicate with all kinds of different people. So through this app, I already have dinner plans with a bunch of people. Some people I know from previous conferences, other people will be new friends to me. We're all going to a Brazilian steakhouse. You probably know how I feel about Brazilian steakhouses. One of my favorite places to not only eat a bunch of steak and picanha, but also practice my Portuguese, which is awesome. So the app itself is wonderful. And just like at Low Carb Denver 2023, I decided it would be fun to talk to some of the attendees of this conference. And I learned that at Low Carb Denver 2023, I put out a request on this app. Basically, any of the attendees could attend. And at Low Carb Denver, we just scheduled them during the breakout or break times during the conference. So I wouldn't miss any of the talks, and the people being hosted wouldn't miss any of the talks. And it was an absolutely wonderful experience. You probably know that was one of my all-time favorite episodes we've ever done. We re-released it as my favorite episode at the end of the year, 2023. I got to meet so many amazing people through that experience. People who were previous, strangers to me, but after doing all of these interviews, we're now really good friends. Most of them have been hosted on their own standalone episodes because they had such amazing stories, and getting to know them and why they were attending was just absolutely so wonderful. So I wanted to do the same thing, but I did find that at Low Carb Denver 2023, when I was scheduling these interviews during the actual conference itself, it did take away from some of the time that I usually had to walk around, meet other people, talk to some of the speakers and other attendees and other people that I have come to know and love in the space. And so rather than scheduling time during the conference for this format, I decided, why don't I find people who this is their very, very first low carbohydrate type conference? Why don't I get them to do a quick interview, 10, 15 minutes before they attend the conference to ask a few very simple questions like, who are you? What's your story with health in particular? What are you looking forward to as far as this conference goes? Why did you sign up? What are some of your expectations? I just wanted to keep it to that. And I also wanted to be able to follow up with people, those same people that I interviewed before, to do another follow-up interview to see like, okay, well, how was it? Did you like it? Was it better than you thought? Worse than you thought? Like, did it meet your expectations? So that's what we have today. I have conducted several of these interviews. The show, as the time of this recording, the show is actually tomorrow. So I haven't gone to the conference just yet. So I actually don't know at this point how it's going to be. And I do have one more interview to do, actually here in just a few minutes, to be able to wrap this up as far as the pre-interviews. And then, like I said, during the conference, I'll be able to meet these people, talk to them in person, and then sometime after the conference, we'll get them back on for another 10 to 15 minutes to discuss their experiences and share their stories. So I hope you enjoy this episode. It's pretty special to be able to meet so many people out there who have the same kind of passion for health and fitness, and have found something that is really unconventional to be able to help them with their health and fitness. And people just get so lit up. I can just tell you, having done some of these recordings already and having met some of the people that you're about to meet, wonderful, amazing people that have really fixed their health, found something quite amazing with a low carbohydrate diet, really struggled with health, and are so lit up and passionate that they are spending their own time, their own money to travel, some people from close, some people further away, to be able to attend the show. So I can tell you already that the interviews I've already had have been very, very special, and I'm so excited to share them with you on this episode. Like I said, hopefully the conference goes well and I can share some positive things before. But like my guests, I thought it would be fun to share my answers to those kind of same questions that I had been asking people. So obviously, my name is Casey Ruff, and my journey to health, I was, kind of the chubby kid growing up, and I really love sports, in particular, like ice hockey and cycling. But I just knew that like my mom was buying me Husky clothes, and I didn't exactly know what that meant. But I started to get interested in health and fitness. I actually got a job at a gym when I was 16 years old, and worked through high school at a gym, basically front desk, selling memberships, making protein shakes, cleaning up the place, like doing everything at this tiny little gym in Draper, Utah, that is no longer there. And I started weightlifting. I really enjoyed that. I was interested in nutrition, again, as it pertained to, gaining muscle, feeling my best for sports performance, and just being overall healthy. I decided to study architecture and went to college for architecture. I never graduated because I ended up starting to work at a corporate gym. And through the process of going into this gym and getting workouts in, I started to notice the personal trainers and thought that what they were doing looked really, really fun, really engaging. They were using heart rate monitors, which was a big passion of mine at the time. And yeah, that was probably to the day about 17 years ago. It was March of 2024. So it's very, very close to the anniversary, probably 17 years of when I actually started my career. I got my certification and have been able to make a career out of training, which can be a challenge. A lot of people don't know that personal training is 100% commission. If you're not selling yourself and your services, you don't make any money. So it's very cutthroat. And a lot of people start personal training when they're very young and get out of it to go do something different, like medical sales or something where they can make a lot more money if they're very good at sales. But I have just always found this to be a passion. I worked that job for many years. I ran a program where we were using metabolic carts to validate people's metabolic rates. We all know what happened during the pandemic. Everything shut down. This gym shut down. We were placed on unemployment. And when we were invited back to start working at the gym again, we just decided, my wife and I, who also has this, was working at the same company and is also a personal trainer and Pilates instructor and works with myofascial tissue release with people. We just decided like the financial difficulty of going back to a corporate structure at a time when we didn't have any more clients, we'd be placed right back into 100% commission, was really, really tough. And so we had to decide to start our own business. And that's how Boundless Body was born. We started our business on July 1st of 2020, started working with people one-on-one. And yeah, just have been building the plane as we've been flying it, as they say. Neither one of us were, serial entrepreneurs. We didn't really know anything about starting a business or accounting, and we just kind of learned how to make a website and put ourselves out there, do some advertising and marketing, and we kept a lot of the same clients we were training before. Just found different ways to work with people. I started the podcast, Boundless Body Radio, in 2020, which has been an absolute smash success since we began in October of 2020. We've maintained a cadence of releasing episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and sometimes on Saturdays or Sundays. And we've just met so many amazing people out there in the health and fitness space, and I couldn't be more proud of what Boundless Body has become, and Boundless Body Radio in particular. And we have no intention of stopping or slowing down anytime soon. So That's kind of my history. Through personal training, I was able to find low carbohydrate diets. I eventually ketogenic and carnivore diets. I found that it improved my own health, my own, cycling ability and sports performance. And then it started working for so many of my clients that I just decided at some point, it was 2018. I just decided that this is what I was going to focus my life on, and I would dedicate myself to knowing more about this topic than the trainers around me, the other people that we were working with. And I haven't arrived there, and I never will. But that has been my continual passion and drive for everything that we do. And yeah, so that's been my goal as far as learning about low carbohydrate diets, to the point that, again, I'm dedicating my my time and money, missing out on clients that I would be training to go and attend this conference. This is the first annual conference. So I don't know exactly what to expect, but I do know Dave Feldman. I know his work, and I know that he will put an incredible amount of detail and care into this event. So I'm very much expecting that this will be a top-notch, world-class type of a conference that will be very, very well done from the very first annual time that it's been held. Might have some hiccups here or there, but I expect it to go very, very well. I expect to come back and be extremely fired up and learn tons of new stuff. I'm very much looking forward to meeting a few people, among them Dr. Ben Bickman, who we've hosted on the show several times. This is the first time I should be able to meet him in person. Dr. Nick Norwitz, very much looking forward to meeting him for the first time. A few other doctors out there, and people like Amber Hearn that I haven't met. There's just so many people that I'm very much looking forward to meeting and giving big hugs to. I also have tons of friends, not only the doctors and experts that I've met before, like Dr. Jeffrey Gerber, Nadir Ali, like all these people, but also people that are attending, people that I met last time at Low Carb Denver 2023 or other conferences. In particular, Robin and Matt Dobbins are going to be there. We already have a dinner planned where we're going to meet up with a bunch of people at that Brazilian steakhouse. I'm getting a ride with them. I'm so excited to hang out with them. Just some of the kindest people on the planet. And yeah, that's kind of my expectation. I think it's going to be an awesome time. Very, very much looking forward to this. I was so fired up about it. Like last night was actually a little bit hard to sleep. I travel tomorrow, which would be, again, very easy for me here in Salt Lake City, but difficult for me to sleep because I'm so excited. You go to these things, and again, you're just with all of these people that have so much energy and passion for what they're doing. And there's just, regardless of the topic that we're talking about, I have said many times, we could be talking about paint chips and people's grocery bills or something, but it's the combined energy of all those people who have a shared passion that just makes it so amazing and wonderful. And the research that we're going to discuss in particular about cholesterol and all kinds of different things in health is just something I'm very, very much looking forward to. So, like I said, this is a nonprofit, so feel free to support the Citizen Science Foundation. You can make donations to Dave and his amazing work at that website. So just look up Citizen Science Foundation. You can follow Dave on his website at cholesterolcode.com, and on X or Twitter or other social media at Real Dave Feldman. You won't regret following him and his work, just doing amazing research to figure things out in a world that is very murky and very difficult to move the needle on the latest research, which is why it's not funded by industry. It's not funded by pharmaceuticals or the medical industry whatsoever. Food industry has no interest in moving this message forward, which is why we need to basically crowdsource funding to get some studies done around cholesterol and LDL cholesterol in particular. So anyway, that is the episode. So I'm basically just going to start releasing these interviews. They're just going to go one by one. We'll do all the befores. I'll add little bumpers in between. You can meet these people. Maybe I'll do some recordings while I'm down there. I'm not quite sure, but we'll also pair these up with the afters in the same order, so you get to hear, one person A before, and then later on in the episode, person B. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. I'm very much looking forward to attending this conference. Can't wait to get down there. And without further ado, here is this collection of interviews taken from attendees of the Collaborative Science Conference. Let's Science, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what your career has been.
That can be a long story. We'll try and do the Cliff's Notes version. I am 72 years old. I'll be 73 in September. I was in the military for 28 years, Army infantry, airborne, jumping out of airplanes, all that kind of good stuff. And I also did, and a lot of that was reserves and National Guard. So I also did a dual career in the business world. I was with Xerox for 20 years and then other big major companies, because I thought it was my intention in life to climb the corporate ladder, and when I get to the top, everything would be cool. I tried that. I got to the top. Everything sucked. I mean, the politics were horrible, the backstabbing and everything else, and I was so disillusioned that but I stayed with it. It was good money. I did very well, very successful. Had a successful career in the military, as I said, and then I retired about a year and a half ago. December of 22 was when I finally retired, and my health was horrible. I was way overweight. I'm 6'1". I weighed at my peak. I was 239 pounds. I was 32.5% body fat. Um, I started having all kinds of problems, lower back problems. They finally did an MRI. I was diagnosed with lower spinal stenosis. I started having knee problems. They told me it was arthritis. Uh, it's just old age. They said it just happens. We can give you pain pills. All the different doctors I went to, basically all they said was, we can give you a pharmaceutical to take away the pain. And I go, well, how long will I be on it? And they go, well, the rest of your life. And I go, well, no, that's not a good solution. So I started researching, and I had a friend. His name is Mark Little, and he wouldn't mind me using his name. But Mark had gotten on this crazy carnivore diet about 8 or 9 years ago. He used to be 320 pounds. He's now 165. So he's lost half of his body weight. And at first I thought, man, you look emaciated or something, because his face got real thin and everything else. But good health, a lot of his health problems went away. And so I said, well, I don't know that I'll go as crazy as carnivore, but I'll do the carnivore with some carbs. So I went to like low carb and kind of paleo. And then I went to keto. And then I went to ketovore, even less carbs. And then finally I transitioned to carnivore. And this was over a period of about 4 months. And I saw huge benefits. I I took up yoga, which I thought real guys don't do yoga. It's for sissies. And took up yoga, made a huge difference in my flexibility and joints and stuff. I signed up at LA Fitness, hired a personal trainer, started doing water weighing, hydrostatic water testing once a month, every month, to check my body fat. And when I switched to carnivore, the weight just started dropping off. I switched to it because I wanted to improve my health. And I sent you a list of all of my befores and afters, but everything disappeared. My problems, I actually thought I was going to start walking with a cane. My knees were so bad. And my lower back was so bad. And I thought, man, I don't want to have back surgery. I've heard nasty things about that. So when I switched to carnivore, it was like magic in my life. And of course, combine that with starting to healthy exercise, yoga, not putting bad things in my mouth, only putting good things in my mouth. And long story short, fast forward, I lost my skin tags that I had. I lost my dry skin. I had dry skin for years and years and years. I went to like 15 different dermatologists. They all said, you have dry skin. You just need to use a lot of lotions and oils. Nothing fixed it. My legs used to itch so bad, I would scratch them until they bled. I couldn't wear shorts in the summer. My legs were so scratched up.
Wow.
And all of that's gone. All of that's gone. My knee problems are gone. My back problems are gone. I'm I'm in better shape than I was in when I was 30 years old. I'm running wind sprints every week. Um, Dr. Sean O'Mara talks about you need to sprint on a regular basis. So I said, aye, aye, sir. So I started I said, I will never sprint. I can't even walk on a treadmill. That was a year ago. Now I'm on a treadmill 2 or 3 days a week, doing low intensity. So I get the fat burn. And then I intersperse sprints in there, and I do the treadmill. Some of them have built-in fit test on the treadmill. I do the fit test for age and weight. It says you're in exceptional shape.
Wow.
My body fat went from 32.5% down to, my last check about 3 weeks ago was 17%. Um, my water weighing guy's amazed. He's like, man, I'm going to start doing some of that. Let me know what all you're doing. So God has blessed me. I've had a huge turnaround, and I mean, I feel like a 30-year-old. I feel bad. My pants, I went from a size 40 waist to a 32, and my 32s are even a little loose now. So
It's
I'm
amazing.
loving life, Casey.
Ah, dude, that is absolutely amazing. You hear about people who do what you did for so many years, and thank you for your service, but jumping out of planes just totally crushes your body. So to be able to see that you've been able to recover from all of that, we're definitely going to have you on for a full episode so we can get more into the sticks of your journey because I think it's so inspiring. And the stuff you did send me was amazing, and the before and after pictures are incredible. We are both signed up to go to the Collaborative Science
Cool.
Conference in Las Vegas. I believe this is your first time going to any type of a
Yes.
conference like that. Why did you decide to sign up and attend this conference in person?
Well, I'll back up a little. I'm as I said, I'm a retired Army infantry, airborne, Pathfinder, lieutenant colonel, all this kind of stuff. And I hate needles. I mean, I can go take a hill and kill all the bad guys, but when it comes to getting stuck with a needle, it's like, no, I don't like that. But I learned from following Dr. Berry, you need to have the right kind of blood test, the frequency of the blood test. And so I started getting my blood tested, and it was costing me money because my physician said, well, you want these 8 tests, and your Medicare and TRICARE for life is only going to pay for like 3 of them, so you got to pay for the others. I go, I'll pay for it. Well, two, three, $400 later, I said that's not a good plan. So I found out about Own Your Labs, and Own Your Labs, you can pay them a hugely discounted rate and get lab work done, and then you go to LabCorp, a LabCorp location near you, and you're in and out, and they do it, and you get tested. So a test that would normally cost like 70 or 80 bucks, I get for $7.50 through Own Your Labs.
It's fantastic.
So I started researching Own Your Labs, and from Own Your Labs, I found out about Dave Feldman, and from Dave Feldman and stuff that he's into, I found out about the collaborative citizen science organization and everything, and that's how I kind of stumbled into it. And then I saw, hey, I get a 10% discount on my labs if I make a contribution to the association. So I went on the association website and they said, hey, we're having a big conference in Las Vegas in March, and your contribution is your ticket to get in. And I go, okay. And I had no biology in high school or college, zero. I was an engineer. I took physics and math and all this other kind of stuff, no biology. So I looked at all the conference stuff and the people speaking, and I went, huh, about 80% of that's going to be over my head. But if I get 20%, it's going to be a great deal. And I get to meet Dave Feldman in person. He seemed like a neat guy. And so that's how I kind of stumbled into this. And I'm going, and I'm going to be the dummy in the room, but that's okay. I will get a lot out of it from osmosis and from learning. And I'm a voracious researcher. If you want to buy, like, I spent an hour and a half online yesterday researching a new propane gas grill because my 24-year-old Weber grill caught on fire night before last when I
Oh
was
no.
cooking a tri-tip. And I went, okay, I can't, I fixed it like 5 times. I've rebuilt it. And I said, okay, no more, it's done. So I went online. I spent an hour and a half researching. So my family knows if you're getting ready to buy something, go talk to Les because he researches this stuff. So if he says, get this one, you can guarantee he's researched everything about it. So I do a lot of research, and every day I spend 2 or 3 hours a day now that I'm retired researching, going down one I call a rabbit trail. It's not really a rabbit trail, but like that's how I found out about iodine. And whoop, there you go, about iodine. And all of a sudden I go, holy cow, I now I know why my naturopathic doctor wants me to take iodine. And so, and then I researched uh, Dr. Fung's book on fasting, and I found out about fasting. And then I researched Dr. Davis's book on supergut and found out about how to fix your gut biome. So I'm a voracious researcher, and I've been publishing a lot of my stuff, and that's what I'm going to do with my website. So that's a long answer to how did you end up coming to the citizen science deal conference, and it's because I, I'm going to be on-site research. I'm going to just be absorbing all this stuff and publishing a lot of this out in one of the 3 categories on my website: spirit, mind, or body. So most of it's probably going to fit in body. I'm sure some of it will fit in mind, maybe a little in spirit. We'll see.
Wow. Are you excited at all?
Long answer.
Are you excited?
Not at
I
all.
can tell.
No,
I
I
can
am
tell.
totally bored to death.
Dude,
Yes, I am thrilled.
So I've been to several of these, and if I could go back and remember what my initial anticipation was of these conferences, I remember walking in feeling like it's my first day of
Yeah,
school, a little shy. Who am I going to see? What am I going to meet? I'm going to be the dumb guy in the room.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then, like, Dave Feldman is just walking around, and you can just go up and say hi and talk to Dave Feldman and Ben Bickman and all these
That's
amazing
great.
people that are here. They'll just chat you up. It is incredible. You'll meet so many wonderful people. You'll be lit from. I'm so excited. I don't want to like
No,
tell
that's
you.
good. That's good. I love it,
I get
Casey.
excited too. Tell me what your expectations for the conference are itself. Like, what do you, when we have you back on in a few weeks after the conference is over, what will you expect to have experienced and to have learned?
Well, that's a very good question. I number one want to meet a lot of people and find out what they're about, because the thing that I found out, I believe I did a lousy job my first 70 years of my life in some areas. And I've had a conversation. I've promised God that in the next 70 years, I will focus on two things: loving God and loving others. Loving God's a lot easier than loving others sometimes, but
True.
I'm going to really focus on that. So I want to meet a lot of people. I want to find out what they're about. I want to find out what I want to basically be able to get their experiences and their knowledge and their specialties, whether it be health and nutrition or exercise or whatever, like you, what you're doing. Uh, I want to get information from my website. I want to meet the speakers, especially Dr. Berry. I've been following Dr. Berry, Ken Berry, for quite a while. And that's how I got this moniker, Kicking Ass After 70. He's written a book called Kicking Ass After 50. And I was on a Zoom with him about 8 months ago, and we were talking. He's looking at my labs. He goes, "Man, you've had a huge transformation. That's great." And I said, "Dr. Berry, I am kicking ass after seven, and I'm 70." He goes, "That's great. You should use that. You should set up a website." So that's how this has all come about. Because I thought, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Because there's lots of people that are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I went to my 50th college reunion last year. Oh my gosh, I saw all these people that were walkers, barely get around. I mean, they had all these health problems, huge number of them overweight and all this kind of thing. And I went, I can help them if they want to be helped. I don't want to be intrusive, but it's kind of like, if you want to be helped, come to my website. So I want to be a sponge and just suck in as much as I can get from this conference that I can republish and use. Because, like, I spent yesterday in this huge deep dive on a very technical subject, and I couldn't understand a lot of it. But what I did is I did a Cliffs Notes version. I did like a 3-page, hey, here's what you want to get out of this. And it was all about longevity and insulin resistance. And I didn't understand 50% of it, but 50% I did understand said, this is some good stuff, and here's what you need to know. So I highlighted and underlined, and then I published my paper with all the references. So if you're a registered nurse or a doctor and you want to go read the whole 18-page study, you can, and you'll get a lot out of it. But if you're a regular old person like me, you can just read my Cliff's Notes or Les's notes and get some stuff out of it.
That's fantastic. Wow, that's amazing. Part of this conference uses an app called WOVA, I believe it's pronounced. And
Love it.
a lot of conferences I've been to don't use an app. Low Carb Denver 2023 used one, and it's how I was able to meet you. You set up a dinner. All of us are going to be going to a Brazilian steakhouse. It's going to be
Yes, sir.
fantastic. What has it been like to be able to use the app to kind of reach out and start to create foundations with other people and find more people in this community?
It's been phenomenal. I mean, I would have been like you several years ago. I would have shown up at the conference not knowing a soul, and looking around going, oh god, how am I going to meet somebody? Can I just walk up and say hi, and but no, I've got like 20 people, including you and others, that I've interfaced with on the app, and I've seen their picture and I've read what they're about and everything. And I feel like I know them. Like you and I were getting together for this interview, and normally I'd be filled with some trepidation, but I'm like, no, man, I know Casey. We've talked back and forth, and we've done the app, and we're going to dinner together, and this is going to be great.
We go
So
way back.
the app is just phenomenal for that, and I'm looking forward to meeting people that I've heard about or not, and I find out about them on the app and go, that seems like a neat person. I want to meet. And then I invite them to this big dinner we're having together on Friday. Friday night, we're going to Picanha Steakhouse. Saturday night, we're going to Rodizio Steakhouse for a different kind of Brazilian steak, and it's all about meat. So
Fantastic.
it's going to be fun, and I feel like I already know a lot of the people. So the app is invaluable. Everybody should use an app like that for their conferences.
I totally agree. Can't promote them enough. And we are going to meet in person next week when we go to the conference. We'll be able to invite you back onto the show to have another conversation and discuss how it went, if it lived up to your expectations or not. But Les, what an amazing story. Thank you so very much for taking the time to come on our show today.
So my name is Shari Reef, and I have lived with chronic pain for most of my life due to ongoing childhood trauma. And at one point in my life, when I was 27, I'm 46 now, so like 19, 20 years ago, somewhere in there, I was in physical therapy for 18 months and walking with a cane. So I couldn't even I have 8 children. And at that time, I was pregnant with my fifth. And to try and even keep up with my kids, I just couldn't do that. So there was at one point in time, my son started running into the street, and I was in so much pain, and I couldn't put full weight on one side of my body that I couldn't grab him. I could hobble enough to just shove him down. So I just shoved my kid into the ground because that was the only way that I could get him to stop. You know how 3-year-olds are. They think it's fun when mommy wants to chase them. Well, it was not a game. And but I was so I lived on Vicodin and Tylenol coating and ibuprofen. And I would spend the last parts of my pregnancy wondering how I was going to get through labor.
This is the craziest first minute of a podcast episode ever. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's insane. And in 2011, we lost our 8th child at 34 weeks. And I had so much fluid, and I would lose complete weight bearing ability on my body. Would shift. One day it'd be the left side, one day it'd be the right side. And I would have friends come over because they would help out and stuff. But just to get the maybe 50 feet from my living room to my bathroom would take me 45 minutes because I would get stuck in place, and I have sweat dripping down my face. Wow. And it was awful. And so through physical therapy and really good whole food supplements, I was able to get about 60% of the way better, to where at least I didn't live in sneakers, and I was able to back off on my pain medicine. And then we learned about paleo, and I was really anti-keto, to be quite honest. I thought it was going to kill you. But paleo was this good way to get in. And my husband's a type 1 diabetic. And so I was always looking for ways to help him with his blood sugar because his A1C would often run between 11 and 14.
Oh my goodness.
So, because we were just doing what the doctors told us to. I'd measure his spaghetti noodles and weigh them out and write on a little piece of masking tape when I'd put it in his lunchbox, this is how many carbs it is. And I didn't know any better. And so it was 2015, 2016, we were eating paleo. It was helping some areas of our health, but it wasn't helping with weight or anything like that. And then due to having a couple foster kids, we kind of fell off that wagon. And in 2018, I had gotten to the heaviest that I had ever been. I was 165 pounds. And that might not sound like a lot to some people, but I'm 5'1".
Wow.
So inflammation, my face was probably double of what it is now. And my husband was super heavy. I shouldn't say super heavy. Oh my gosh, he's going to see this and be like, no, he wasn't super heavy, but he was flubby. I mean, you could just tell because he was having to take a lot of extra insulin. And so that adds on the weight. And a friend of mine introduced me to Dr. Fung's work. Amazing. And so I read the obesity code, and I had always dealt with hypoglycemia. that reactive hypoglycemia. So my blood sugar would drop into like the 40s. And some people would say, well, how do you know? I'm like, my husband's a diabetic. I can grab a meter in any room. My blood sugar would drop into the 40s. And so my doctor basically told me like I had to keep raisins with me because it would happen sometimes when I was driving and I'd have to like whip into a fast food place. And by the time I'd get up to get my Coke or whatever, I'd be slumped over the steering wheel. It was that bad.
Wow.
So I was thinking, there's no way that I'll ever be able to fast, let alone like not eat 6 times a day. But my pants were cutting into my sides and I refused to go from a 16 to an 18. So as I was reading the obesity code, um, the the light just went on. I was like, this just makes so much sense because even though Dr. Fung does not necessarily promote one way of eating, because his target base is for anyone and you can fast with any way of eating, you can really tell he leans more in the low carb spectrum.
That's right.
And I was just like, this is amazing. So November of 2018, I started fasting and we just started by cutting out the snacks and then really just raising the protein and fat and slowly lowering those carbohydrates. And by Thanksgiving, we were strict keto. Like, talk about going to a it's not restrictive, but where you're going to be going and there's all these sweet treats and everything. We made our own stuffing. We made our own pumpkin pie. We made everything and took it to our grandma's house for dinner. And it was just like night and day. And then we fell off during 2020, but not all the way. And neither one of us, my husband or I, gained back like all the weight. And started hitting hard again the summer of 2021. And but I had gotten plantar fasciitis in my feet, like really, really bad. And so the fall of 2022, we just went carnivore. And within like a couple months, my feet were back to normal. And I haven't touched my cane since probably 2017. And like I haven't had to get a refill of Vicodin or Tylenol with codeine, in many years. And my husband's A1C is down to 7.
Wow.
So, and he's lost now like 20 some pounds. He still has a ways to go with his A1C because he deserves to have a normal A1C,
Yeah.
just like anyone else. But fighting that insulin resistance is hard. So I took some courses and became a certified ketogenic consultant. And like we both just want to live this, sharing this message to everyone, because if it wasn't for people like the people that are going to be at Las Vegas, we wouldn't be here. We went from my husband thinking he was going to die in his 40s to now, hey, what are we going to do in retirement? And it's because of people like Dr. Bickman and Dr. Barry and Dr. Fung and all those people. So we have a YouTube channel and I have a website, and we kind of try to focus on people with families so that they can see that they can do this too. And it's not like, it's not impossible to do on a budget, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I'm so excited because I'm alive when I'm learning all this stuff. It's just fantastic. I get asked all the time, why weren't you a doctor? I'm like, because if I was a doctor, I wouldn't know everything I know now.
Keto's going to kill you,
I know.
That
I know.
is that is
like,
remarkable. Wow. What an amazing story. And it's crazy, all of these stories accumulating that we're hearing in the community, as you well know at this point. Like, it's not just one person or a few random people. It's like anybody who gives us a try, their whole life changes in the most strange and wonderful ways. And what an amazing thing to think that, managing really, really poor health in a very poor way versus like thriving and thinking about how are my next decade's going to look. It's just such a different outlook. So, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. You mentioned Las Vegas and the Collaborative Science conference that we're going to. This is your first ever conference of this type. Is that correct?
Yeah, of this kind. I've been to like nutritional conferences from the company that we had used the supplements that helped me get like 60% of the way, but I've never been to anything like this where it's just 2 days of speakers and complete getting my nerd on. I am just so excited. Like I can't wait. I'm so excited.
So this is going to be perfect then. Obviously, the nature of the conference that you've been to before is vastly different. But what was your experience going
Right.
to something like that? Like, was it fun and exciting? Were you buzzing afterwards, or was it just like, oh, we learned some things and yeah, we're going to sling some supplements?
There was some energy. It was more like training on like the supplements and what they did. But not not the extent of like education that I just crave. So it was and so because of that, I haven't been to one of those in several years because they get to be expensive and I want education. Like I don't all the frou-frou hype and all of that, that's not me. And that's not what like gets my motor going. Having 2 days of lectures, that is what gets me. That is like I'm in my element. And I mean, to be able to listen to Dr. Bickman, it's gonna be like heaven. He is gonna get the biggest hug from me, and he's gonna be like, "Who are you?"
That's amazing. You are willing to give up your weekend, Friday and Saturday, for what you mentioned, discourses essentially, like from the morning through the afternoon to the early evening. And you're excited to give up your. There's other things you can do in Vegas. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's other ways that you can go
Oh,
entertain yourself. You're
yeah.
choosing to be
I
inside all day, all weekend.
Yep, all day, all weekend. We've got a bunch of us are meeting up with. I'm in Dr. Barry's private community, and so a bunch of us are getting together, and we're going out to some fabulous restaurants on Friday and Saturday. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and get to meet the friends that I've made like online, but actually get to like see them, and so that's like super exciting. But even if none of them were coming, um, I would still be I would still be coming and I would be there by myself. And I have severe social anxiety, but with carnivore, it's in check. Like so I can go to something like this and not be in the bathroom the entire time. Um, but yeah, I mean, you think about I'm not made of money. And so, like this particular one, because it's a like donation based, I felt it was more important to even give more than like the minimum ticket amount
Very cool.
because it's going for such a good cause. Everything worked out so that my lodging is going to be minimal cost to me, so that really helps. Getting a plane ticket because I'm in Wisconsin, so it's not like I can just drive. Um, it's not like this is going to be a freebie. So like I'm putting my money where my mouth is,
Right.
um, because I just know that all the knowledge that I'm going to gain by, basically sitting at the feet of these very knowledgeable people and just gleaning what they have to give me, it's going to help other people because then like I've got people asking me to do workshops, so I'm putting together one in May. I'm going to take everything that I learned here and add that in. When you get messages from someone with a child that has autism that would never touch meat and now they're living on beef nuggets and carnivore Cheetos, and someone else that has arthritis so bad that they haven't been out of pain in over the decade that I've known them, and they finally reached out and we're just doing whole food keto, and her rheumatologist is actually going to start taking her off of medication. That is just you can't you can't put a price on the feeling that you get when someone reaches out to you and just says thank you. This is it just like every time I open up my messenger, it just brings tears to my eyes when I see these things. We get to come home from treatment 3 weeks early because you helped us fix the diet for my son when the holistic dietitian had him on nothing but inflammatory foods. And that was why he wasn't growing. And now he started growing like a weed. And they get to come home to Wisconsin from this special clinic like 3 weeks early.
Wow.
And it's not like I did anything special. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. All I did was share information,
Yeah. So
you
powerful.
know? Yeah.
So
So
powerful.
I'm just like, I'm just so excited to just, and Michelle Hearn, she's another one that I
Ah,
love. And I reached out to her on the COSI's forum. And yes,
I
yes.
even have her
So I'm
children's
bringing
book that
that
she
book.
just wrote.
Yes, I've got two of those actually. One for
Uh,
me and then one for our little niece who eats nothing but junk. So we gave that to her for Christmas for her big siblings to read to her. So I'm bringing our copy and then my copy of The Dietitian's Dilemma. And Michelle said she'd sign them for me and take a selfie with me. So like I'm just geeking. Plus the weather's going to be like in the 80s.
oh, I
So
know.
hello, how can you go wrong?
I know. Well, I was just thinking that when you said you're coming in from Wisconsin, I'm in Salt Lake City, so it's at least a little bit closer for me. But yes, this is on my own dime. I have to fly
Yep,
and do my lodging. I miss out on clients when I go to these things. And so I'm not only
yep.
paying to go, but I'm losing money on the back end. And so it is a consideration. And yes, I would love to go to Vegas and lay out by the pool all day and enjoy the sunshine, but I'm going to be inside soaking up all of it as well. And I was just curious, like what happens if you get there and yeah, maybe Ben Bickman is doing his great presentation, but he's getting helicoptered in right before and helicoptered out right after. And Ken Berry is signing books, but only if you buy, both of his books, and he's only signing them for that. Like, what are your expectations of like meeting these people?
I mean, just based off of like, I get to chat with Dr. Barry weekly if I want to via Zoom because of the level of membership. So knowing him and knowing like other people that have met Dr. Bickman at conferences like this, um, like I know my expectation is that they're such humble people that they're going to be like, yeah, I'll snap a selfie with you, no problem, and Dr. Bickman just has like this amazing, generous heart and spirit. And so would I be a little disappointed if they were like, hey, I'm only in here for the half an hour that I'm speaking and then we have to jet? I would be disappointed, but it would still be worth it just for that half an hour of hearing them speak.
Great answer.
But I know, like in the depth of my soul, that they'll be like, "Yeah, come over here. We'll take a selfie. I'll sign your book, no problem."
Ken Berry just puts on a face for the people that sign up for his group. I can tell you in person, he's not like that. He's a jerk. I'm just kidding. Well, my favorite part about all of this is getting to meet new people, and this has been a wonderful story, and I'm so excited to see you in person and to give you a great big hug. We're already best friends. It's going to be an
Yes,
amazing experience, and we'll get to talk to you afterwards, and you can share about how the conference was and what your thoughts were. So, Shari,
that is
thank you.
awesome.
Thank you so much for sharing your amazing story. What an incredible story, and I can't wait to follow up with you.
All right, that sounds great, and I will see you in a week.
We'll see you in a
A week.
week. Yes.
Alrighty. I'm Chip. I'm already in Vegas because for about the last 2 years, I've been what's considered a digital nomad as I try to develop a YouTube channel. Um, Prior to that, for 25 years, I lived in Texas and I was a political event photographer. So I know a lot of the politicians, but in fact, one of the politicians saved my life. I was on the phone discussing a kind of a hotly contested campaign and I started having a stroke.
What?
And the state representative I was talking to, Representative Zedler, who's retired now, was on the phone. I started slurring my speech, and we actually were talking about somebody that may have had a drinking problem, so he thought I was imitating the person.
Oh
I'm
no.
like, no, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not drinking. But he had been in Vietnam and had done some kind of a medical assistance in the war. I guess helped a medic or a MASH unit or something. I don't know what they had there, but then he sold medical supplies. So he basically diagnosed it over the phone, drove to my house. I had passed out in the kitchen by then, and he's knocking on the door and calling my phone, which I had happened to leave by the chair I was sitting at in the living room as I went to the kitchen to turn off the stove and then just collapse. I'm semi conscious and I can hear him knocking. And of course, he can't hear me. I'm trying to reach up and grab the counter to stand up, kind of with my eyes closed because I guess I'm half passed out at that point, and I can't really move. Turned out I had a massive stroke that paralyzed my whole left side, and if he hadn't
Wow.
responded, I would have died in the kitchen floor.
Wow.
So
Wow.
he called 911 with all the things. He's like, we were on the phone at this time, so it started at this point. They came, kicked the door in. Uh, Next thing I know, a fireman's like tapping me on the thing. I think you're having a stroke. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Oh my goodness.
So they got me in the ambulance and off to a level 1 stroke uh, treatment center. And I actually qualified to use the $11,000 clot busting shot. So it cleared the clot, and I was in ICU for 2 days, paralyzed on my left side. But that started recovering in about 4 hours after the clot buster worked. But they have to do MRIs and CAT scans beforehand to make sure you don't have the bleeding kind of stroke, or that pill could or that shot could probably kill you. So anyway, I walked out of the hospital 4 days later under my own power. Zero deficits is what they said. It means that I don't have any lasting uh, disabilities.
Wow.
Technically, I mean, when you're paralyzed on one side, you kind of favor that side for a while.
Right.
But
Wow.
then I actually started like going to the doctor, and they sent me to a nutritionist and all, who told me to eat basically based on the food pyramid to lose weight. Well, after 3 years, I had gone from marginally overweight, like 210 pounds, to about 260 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
Losing weight on the standard American protocol that the nutritionist and the doctor kept pushing. Oh, we need you to lose a little weight, eat more carbs. I'm like, after 3 years, I'm like, my brain may have been damaged, but I know this is not right. So I got on YouTube and found Low Carb Down Under, and I think Dr. Westman was giving the presentation that I first saw. And you know, it's hard not to like Dr. Westman.
It's hard not to like Dr.
So
Westman.
so I listened to him and then found more. And currently now I'm with Dr. Chafee's Patreon group and his How to Carnivore program. So of course, Dr. Westman teaches prescription strength keto. And that's how 59 is in my title, because I was 59 pounds over ideal weight when I picked the name. And eventually, when I started, I think I was closer to 70 some pounds overweight, but didn't want to change the name. And obviously, fit is the goal, and CP is my initial. So that's kind of my brand now. And I did lose 60 pounds about my birthday last year. But then my dad, I was in Tennessee at the time, my dad emailed me that my mother was a candidate to go into hospice. So, kind of from that point on until her death in July, the weight kind of started adding back on, mainly from cortisol and stress, I think, not really changing my diet a whole lot. I mean, I wasn't strict carnivore, but I was pretty close. And so, even though I'm on a carnivore diet, I'm still yo yoing some, but that's basically my story. And my ideal weight, according to BMI, is like 185. So,
Mm,
I think I have about, I think this morning I hit 220 again on the way down.
great.
So I guess I'm 35 pounds to go at this point, even though
Sure.
I was only like 15 pounds
Mm,
uh, almost a year ago.
yeah. Wow.
But your body reacts to stress and life. So
Yep.
it doesn't always, it matters a lot what you put in.
Yep.
But that's one reason I'm going, is to get around the heat and get remotivated.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, the stress thing is real. As much as we would love to be able to control it all the time, there's so few things that we really can control. And definitely condolences about your mother. That we know how hard that is, for sure.
So thank
So and yeah, we also know like the ideal weight by BMI can be a little bit tricky. I think a lot of people in our community that are eating, whether eating strict carnivore or more like hyper carnivore, where at least 75% of their calories are coming from carnivore foods, animal-based foods, lots of times they are lean and fit and they're well above the standard like kind of range for weight for BMI. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes over time. But yeah, so is it safe to say that your primary reason for going to this conference that's coming up to get more of that like kind of excitement around the diet and get remotivated?
Yes. Being around the participants and the speakers, I feel will be very motivating. I did a lot of MLM stuff years ago, and all those rah-rah things always, you come out and you're real ready to go evangelize afterwards, for lack of a better word, which I don't think is a good thing with a diet to be an evangelist, but I think example is better than words.
I love that. That's so well said. Now, you and I actually have had a conversation in person before. We were both attending Low Carb Denver 2023, and we were walking in and we had a conversation, but you were not able to attend the whole thing. I think you had something else going on at the time.
Yes, for all of 2023, I did house and pet sitting.
Mm,
So I had gotten a pet sit and house sit about a mile from the Gaylord. So every time we had a break, I had to run back and walk the dogs, which usually turned into also eating lunch and maybe being gone 2 or 3 hours. So, and I had to walk them in the morning and the evening. So I probably missed 50%. So I've tried to rewatch it after Dr. Berger has posted them. And I'm like, wow, I wish I'd have seen that presentation live. But
I was just going to
the
ask.
main reason,
Go ahead.
and the main reason I went there is I knew Dr. Westman was on the schedule, and we did get to talk. And I had seen a post, I guess December of 2022, from Dr. Nally in Arizona, where a patient had a 70 some year old patient had a fully occluded left internal carotid artery. And Dr. Nally's post just had the carotid Doppler picture showing it fully occluded. And after a year of carnivore, he was down to 37% occlusion.
Wow.
And I told Dr. Westman, I said, well, my right internal was found to be fully occluded on the stroke. If I go full carnivore, for a year, can I open it up? And he's like, well, I'm not really carnivore. You need to talk to Dr. Barry. He's over there, or Dr. Tro's over there. So I'm like, all these people are just right there. But I didn't get to talk to all of them because of my other commitments. But I did go stricter. I basically cut out seed oils for 2023. And I had another Doppler done in January before I left Virginia on this trip. And I now have some degree of flow in that artery,
Wow.
which, they all say, if it's blocked, it's blocked. You can never open it up.
Right. Right. Wow.
But I have medical proof now that I can open it up. And I credit it to cutting out 99% of seed oils over 2023.
Wow. Good for you, man. That can be a hard change. Seed oils are in everything. So you really have to be
Oh, they are.
committed to be able to do that. Well, that's fantastic. Amazing story. You understand kind of what it's like to just kind of take your pick of which doctor you want to go chat up during a conference. This is your first full conference, the Collaborative Science conference here in Vegas. What are you looking forward to? What are you expecting? You mentioned the motivation part, but what other things are you hoping to take away from this?
Some personal discussions with doctors that can maybe guide me down the path further. I know they can't give medical advice, but like Dr. Westman, I talked to him. I said, "Is this possible?" And it probably is possible. And he happened to know Dr. Nally because he was the president of the obesity medicine found, and Dr. Nally was in it. So I'm gonna call him and ask him to write that up in the paper so we can get it published. I don't know if that happened or it didn't, but that, I think, the personal interaction with people like you, with other people, influencers, just average Joe, learning their story, being inspired by them, and getting around the heat, because when everybody comes together, there's all this success.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, my main thing. And you were saying you're already talking with Mike. I've already met one of Dr. Chafee's Patreons. He came by the hotel here yesterday, and we're having ribeyes Wednesday night, and he's super excited about going to the conference. This will be his truly first one.
Wow. Oh,
He
that's
didn't even know about it until I mentioned it. So
glad you brought it up. I'm sure he's very glad in his hometown.
he will be. Yeah.
That's fantastic. It's something pretty special when you have a room full of people that have found something similar that's really given them their life back, and they've got more, energy and zest for life, and to have that in common with everybody, it just combines synergistically for this crazy amount of energy in these conference rooms. I wonder sometimes whether like the conference room staff notices a difference in the way people are behaving, if they're different than some of the MLM conferences you've been to in the past, and that kind of thing. Is there anybody in particular that you have not met yet that you see is going that you would like to get to know?
Well, I saw Dr. Ben Bickman on the schedule, and one of the first books we read in Dr. Chafee's book club was Why We Get Sick, and he joined us on the last one. So I like this saw him on Zoom, but I really want to shake his hand and say that was a great book.
That's awesome. That would be my top one as well. I've not yet been able to meet Dr. Bickman. I'm so excited to meet him. One of the other of these interviews that we did, the woman is just absolutely so excited to meet him as well. And he's just such a kind person, at least through a screen. So we'll see if he's actually that kind in person. I'm willing to bet he probably is. Well, this has been an awesome.
Yeah, and that was what impressed me with Dr. Chafee in Denver, because he wasn't actually on the schedule. So when I turned around and saw him standing there, I'm like, whoa, he's here. So I went up and talked to him, and he impressed me as one of the nicest, most sincere people. I mean, most doctors are empathetic and caring, but just talking to him one-on-one, it was very obvious. He's smart, and he's caring, and he's very easy to talk to. So that's why I joined his Patreon group.
Absolutely. Did you find when you saw him, did you do what I did and basically like triple take? Like, is that? No. Wait, is that?
Yeah, I'm
sure tall and tan. No, can't be. He's not on the list.
like, it's like, yeah, I recognize him. Who is it? It took me a minute. I mean, I do have a brain injury. So it took a minute to, I'm like, he's not supposed to be here, but what's he doing and standing there?
Exactly.
And then his beautiful girlfriend beside him.
Yep, exactly. And yeah, he had to come from the other end of the world. It's not like he just crossed the street to be there, was a mile away like you were. He had to come all the way from across the world from Perth, Australia. Oh, man. Well, I am very excited to attend this conference. I can tell that you are as well. And I'm looking forward to not only seeing you there, hanging out with you there, but also following up and seeing how the conference was and see if it met your expectations.
I have a feeling it will, but it probably exceed them. But we'll discuss it next week.
I have a hunch that you might be right, but yes, let's discuss it and then make sure. Thanks, Chip. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
Yep, absolutely. It was an honor.
Okay. Hi. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody into the podcast. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Mark Rhodes, and about 8 years ago, at the end of 2016, my wife came to me and said, I want to do this keto thing. And I said, what's this? I knew nothing about it. She explained it, and she said she wanted it for her mental health more than the weight, even though she was obese. And I was as well, but, I was like, I could deal with it. And I had been athletic, non-athletic, athletic, non-athletic. I was just getting over 7 herniated discs, osteoporosis. I didn't know yet that I had heart disease and prediabetes. And so being an engineer, mechanical engineer, I had actually studied exercise physiology at UW Whitewater in the 90s. And so I was like, okay, we'll look at this. And I said, you drive the bus, right? You tell me what to do and I will support you. And after about 6 weeks, I'm looking on Facebook and I'm not getting the results these other people are getting. And we got to remember back then, the keto community was really small. There were 3 books, Nina's, Gary's, and the Volek and Finney, right? Jimmy Moore was out there, but that was kind of clouded. The Westman side of his story was excellent. Jimmy's side was Jimmy. So I'm reading this stuff, and I was like, all right, I'm going to drive. And I'm reading Finney and Volek, The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Athletic Performance. I didn't start with their first book. I started with that one. And I said, all right, I need to stop. I need to stop pretending I know what I know, and I might be suffering cognitive dissonance. So I'm going to pretend this is the very first nutrition book I have ever read in my life. Suddenly, it all made sense. I mean, I could see when I was marathoning why I was gaining weight. That's when I learned about Tim Noakes. I learned how he was gaining weight. I mean, we're running 100, 120 miles a week, and we're gaining weight, and it's not the good weight. What's going on? So my wife and I, we started losing weight. Her mental health began to get better. We were controlling her bipolar. At the time, she was so depressed, she had considered suicide once or twice.
Wow.
That went away. I mean, and being an engineer, I charted all this. I have her filling out, like, how do I feel on a scale of 1 to 10? Do my knees hurt on a scale of 1 to 10? So I could show her, how is my memory today? So I could show her, like three months later, here's a graphic interpretation of what you just went through. Because people who suffer emotional and cognitive disorders, they don't remember what it was like 3 months ago. they just remember this morning and how terrible it is. So I could show her, look, you're improving. It's things are getting better. We eventually that year, she hit a stall. We drove over to Madison, which is about 70 miles from us. For those who don't know, we're in southeast Wisconsin near Lake Geneva. We met with Maria Emmerich at the Barnes & Noble. She was selling one of her new books. And we went to hire her. And instead, Maria said, don't hire me. Read my book. And if it doesn't work, I will gladly take you on as clients. And so we read her book and we learned a lot more about, because I was like, she was the other side of the equation, right? So we started doing her keto cleanse stuff, and my wife started losing weight. And what it was stevia. That was the sticking point for my wife, right? So alternative sweeteners aren't always the friend that everyone says they are. Certain people will react to them, whether it's a cephalic response, whether the pancreas actually shoots out insulin. It's hard to say, but it's a stall.
Yeah, good point.
So then I got really involved with a friend here at work. Had really tuned in the two keto dudes. And so I became friends with Carl and Richard. I went out to the Keto Fest and became friends with Amber O'Hearn and Peter Ballerstedt and just got enmeshed in the community. I can tell you that this is being part of Citizen Scientists Foundation conference, right? What we're here talking about. I was sitting out in Carl's front yard with Dave, and we're talking about crowdsourcing science. He's like, I really wish I could crowdsource science. He goes, but what am I going to offer people? What am I going to, because, remember, Kickstarter's always had some kind of product, right? You kick in $50, you get Rebel ice cream. You kick in, $100 and you're at a VIP party for Keto Fest, right? So and I'm like, Dave, there are so many people who want the science that we can't get. None of us can do it. I think you can crowdsource this. I said, whether it's a charity, whether it's, you don't go through Kickstarter, you don't. And so I believe that conversation and many like it helped create Citizen Scientists Foundation. And where Dave's taken it, that's just his amazing ingenuity. That's just him being Dave, right? And then Siobhan joined and all that. So my health journey, all of a sudden, I started practicing 48 to 96-hour fasts once a month. Continued to lose weight. I started adding muscle. In fact, I gained 33 pounds of muscle in weight resistance training. This is by DEXA scan. I have over 20 DEXA scans in the 8-year period, and I can show exactly what happened. Steve Finney and I got in an argument about, he said I could have gained more had I not fasted. And I said, at 55 years old, what 55-year-old man, I'm 60 now, but then I was 55. What 55-year-old man adds 33 pounds of lean tissue?
Amazing.
Right, and takes off fat. And Steve Finney, he's really against fasting. My osteoporosis went from a negative T.19, which is, it's right there in a bad area. I'm now a positive 1.7.
Wow.
I attribute that to the 5-day fast once a month every 6 weeks. I did that for 18 months. I studied with the Nobel Prize. He had a 3-month course. The guy who won the autophagy Nobel Prize. So I studied what he had to say about yeast and all that, and I applied a lot of that. I didn't necessarily agree with Jason Fung about the Hall study, the original Hall study from 1993 about autophagy increasing 300%, about all these things that would happen. And so I would do these fasts. I would test my insulin. I would test HGH, human growth hormone, to see if that could be used as a marker for autophagy. What I actually saw is my HGH plummet, not increase 300%.
Wow.
And so every time I did a 96-hour fast, I'd see all this plummeting, and yet I was getting healthier.
Wow.
I have some other markers we could look at, but it's all correlational. Again, it's the engineer in me that, and I'll tell you, funny aside, we were in a van, Dave Harper, Dave Feldman, and myself were in a van going to this Redmond Mines. We were part of the keto chow thing in 22. And I'm showing these guys, my charts and all that. And Dave's like, I have chart envy. And for, to me, that's like the ultimate compliment.
That's a compliment.
Someone like Dave, right? When Dave Feldman says, I really love your graphics. I really love the way you present your material.
Wow.
When I came in, Casey, I had 7 herniated discs. Again, I weighed about 250 pounds. Today I weigh 230, but my body fat percentage was 29%. Right now it's 15.6.
Wow. So good.
So my worst disc was at L5S1. I had been pronounced permanently disabled in 2013 and was on 300 milligrams of Oxycontin a day,
Oh my goodness.
legally. And I was taking more than that. I can tell you, I was so hardcore addicted that eventually I fired everyone. And I came up with, I started hanging upside down 3 times a day. The worst disc rupture was 10 by 10 by 12 millimeters into the sciatica, which is why they pronounced me permanently disabled. I do occasionally send pictures of that doctor.
Wow.
Because
Savage.
I'm also that guy. Yeah. So with all that being said, I hung upside down 3 times a day, 4 times a day. I adjusted my TENS unit to create different types of shock impedance. And then I worked with a yogi to create a rehabilitation plan to lengthen and broaden the spine. All of that has seemed to work. Later MRIs in 2016, 2019, and 2022 all show minor bulging, and I lost over 1 inch of height. That has not come back, but I don't have pain.
Wow.
Since that time, I've taken 2 shots, cortisone shots, just to when I did have pain. But it's at 60, there's certain things as a heavier athlete, and that there's things that I have to expect.
Yeah.
During this time, around 2019, I woke up one morning and my hands were numb. And I was like, they're like carpal tunnel. I'm like, carpal tunnel just doesn't come on like that. And it turned out to be carpal tunnel. I just didn't want to believe it. However, they discovered a small abnormality in my heartbeat. It's just a sinus rhythm thing, but my ejection fraction was down to 45%. I had a Agatston score that had risen from 76 to 375.
Oh.
What I've since learned is that keto will do the same thing as a statin. It will calcify the soft plaque, but unlike a statin, the keto and fasting will help erode it along with certain supplements. If you're familiar with Patrick Tuitt, his K2 concentrated K. I also do a protocol I based on Linus Pauling and Tim Rath, the high doses of vitamin C, lysine, and proline, because these are precursors of collagen. And when you have the right amount of that, you don't have LP little a. And I've charted this all out, and I've proven to myself, I need to get like 20 people now to actually see if we can adjust other people's LP little a. But I've gotten mine as low as 6. I started at 100, got it down to 6. When I back off, I just see it pops up a little bit, but don't let anyone tell you it's genetic and you have to stay there. So my ejection fraction these days is sitting at about 60%. I've lowered the blockage in my heart by 8.2%.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow, that's so cool. What an amazing journey that you've been through. And I'm so glad you were willing to try something different and support your wife, and that both of you have seen such amazing results. It's just absolutely inspiring. And this is not your first health conference like some of the other people we've talked to before, so you kind of know what to expect of these types of conferences. But it is your first time attending the collaborative your conference that we're going to now.
It's only because it's the first time Dave's done this.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the first time for everybody. What are you expecting? What are you looking forward to the most?
Well, from a personal side, what I'm looking forward to the most is meeting my old friends, and I see them virtually all the time, on Zoom or FaceTime and all that. But as we like to say, trading electrons is the best thing. So getting together and sharing dinner and jokes and that. But what I'm looking forward to is this lineup seems to be really different in that it's going to be a speed round. Boom, 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 right? We're going to have 15 minutes of Nadir. And by the way, at one point, Nadir was my cardiologist, right?
Oh,
and
cool.
So we're friends. And then I had him interview my local cardiologist. And my local cardiologist is like, I've never had this done. I'm like, well, you've never really had anyone like me. So he's like, all right. And we interviewed, and he's like, Nadir's like, yeah, you can work with this guy. He still believes the old stuff, but we'll get him there, right? So We did that. He retired, but we're still friends. He says he can't believe my fastidiousness to this way of eating, and he can't unsee what he's seen.
Mm.
So, we're winning, right? We're winning. Anyway, I'm looking forward to some of the people I've never had an opportunity to meet. Like Brett Scher, I've talked to him on the phone. One point it was going to be between Nadir and him, but I had met Nadir many times at Keto Fest, and I hadn't met Brett. Now I get a chance to meet Brett, right? And it'd just be like, hey, cool, how's it going? I'm really excited about some of the athletic performance things, like what you guys bring to the table. I think that's the other side. Back when Danny Vega was more involved in the keto community with the keto athlete, ketogenic athlete, him and Brian. I was really involved in that group because there was people training for triathlons, there were strength advocates, there were bodybuilders, and everyone had these different perspectives. And then for a while, the community seemed to lose the fitness side of it. And that seems to be growing back because people didn't want to go through that adaptation phase.
Right.
And you see it all the time with your clientele, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's tough.
The other things I'm looking forward to, again, that rapid fire idea sounds really interesting to present us with a whole range of ideas rather than 45-minute talks, right? The other thing I'm really excited about is the independent researchers like myself. Had I been able to do the LP little a experiment with 20 people, I would have asked to present. I wasn't going to present. Everyone's seen my stuff on the internet anyway. I wasn't going to present just a case study of me, but I am excited to see what other people are putting out there.
So cool, man. I love that you said you're excited to see friends that you met before and also to meet new friends. And you're somebody who I'm very much looking forward to meeting in person. I've got a big old hug waiting for you when I see you in Las Vegas. It's going to be awesome. Mark, thank you so very much for taking the time to be on our show, to kind of talk about this conference. And I'm very much looking forward to meeting you and talking about it afterwards to see if it lived up to your expectations, which I think it might, but we'll decide that afterwards. So thank you, Mark.
Yeah, well, let's see if it lives up to yours as well.
We'll see.
This is all new ground for us.
Yep, it's all new ground. I think it's going to be okay, but we'll talk about this afterwards. In the meantime, thank you so very much, Mark. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
So now that we have met 4 of the participants of the Collaborative Science Conference, let's go ahead and hear the follow-up. Let's see how the conference went for our 4 participants, Les, Shari, Chip, and Mark. And we're just going to go in that same order to hear how things went. All right, Les. Well, it sounds like you had quite a difficult trip home from the conference. And one thing you did not mention when we talked before, I had no idea you were an expert in herding cats. Oh my goodness. You trying to put together some of these dinners that we went to. It was amazing, but boy, oh boy, oh boy, I did not envy you whatsoever.
Well, it wasn't worth the points they give you for organizing something like that. But no, it was fine. The challenge is there's always somebody who wants to help or wants to do something or this and that, or wants to change something. And it's like, when you have it dialed in, it's like, you really don't want extra help. You really don't want to change and stuff like that. So, but it all worked out great. And in fact, I have volunteered to be a part of the Citizen Science Foundation as far as just helping. And so for next year, and it's such a worthy cause. I'm all in. I volunteered for Dave. He said, yeah, go talk to Sharon. She could use the help. So I didn't realize that Dave and Sharon were married. Yeah. I mean, different last names and all this.
I didn't know that either.
So yeah, so I talked to Sharon. She was, oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm all in. I'm going to help them, some with money, not a lot, because I don't have, old. I call myself an old retired disabled military veteran on a pension, But yeah, I'm going to help out some with. I've got a fundraising thing underway right now on the Proper Human Diet community and Dr. Berry's community. I can tell you about, but I'm going to help them with fundraising. I've already talked to them, and what we may do is do Rodizio Grill next year, do it both nights, but have it planned out in advance, get people to sign up in advance, and maybe get 40, 50, 60 people a night
Wow.
and go back to that place. Because as you know, it was wonderful.
It was wonderful. Yeah, that was a great dinner. I was sure to go leave them a rating and review. And I even met one of the servers who lived in a city that I lived in Brazil. So that was quite special to be able to
No
to be
kidding.
able to talk to her about living there, which was quite cool. Yeah, and
That's great.
I could just see your military background kind of shine through as you took point on that and really got everything organized. So thank you very much for doing that. I didn't know that
Sure.
you were like kind of more formally volunteering, which is a great segue to ask you the question, like what you thought of the conference. You must have been pretty impressed with how the conference is run if you're willing to already be volunteering for the next one.
I was totally blown away. I was totally impressed. I mean, there were so many MDs and PhDs, not that titles matter, but the thing that signifies to me is the people that were talking had a baseline of expertise that enabled them to give those talks. And I'm putting aside for a minute the citizen scientist portion where they had the first timers that got to talk, because that was excellent also. But talking about the speeches that the MDs and the PhDs gave and stuff like that, I was crazy. I took over 800 pictures
Wow.
I took a picture of every slide that was put up for the 2 days, and I recorded everything. I recorded Dr. Berry's speech. I've got Dr. Berry's speech now publicized on my website,
Ah.
and got that up. It came out really good. Except I had the camera, the phone turned this way, and then when he walked over to the screen, I turned it this way, thinking it'll just orient. Well, it did, except the whole rest of the presentation was sideways. So it took me an hour to find an app to reorient it, but I did, and it's up. It's just things of getting started, but it's up and running. I love the speakers. I love the interaction. The one thing that I would change, and I'm going to give them this feedback, is the speakers aren't going to like this, but I believe that there should be, where all of our vendors are at the back, the sponsors. I think there should be a table in between every two vendors, the sponsors, and a speaker should be at that table so that you can find them and you can go talk to them, get them to sign the books, whatever it might be. Because when they got off stage, sometimes it was hard finding them. I never tracked down Dr. Bickman and a couple of others.
Yeah, no, that's really good feedback. Hopefully they'll take that into account. It was really intermittent, right? Like you could find some people some days, but normally
Yes.
like they were surrounded by a bunch of people. Like I really wanted to meet the Bazookies and I never had the chance because everybody wanted to meet the Bazookies. And so I never got to break through on that. Okay, so what were some of your highlights? Like who really stood out as far as presenters? You've already mentioned Dr. Bickman. What other presenters really stood out?
I'm horrible on names, Casey. The the older I say older gentleman, I'm 72. He's probably not as old as I am, but the older gentleman who was the fitness guy who talked about all of that, I was like, wow. I was really blown away by that. And and
Dr. Ben Bicocchio is his name.
yes,
Yep.
thank you. And Two Crazy Ketos. I'd never seen them because my mind dismissed them because I'm carnivore. I don't know what I'm going to learn from ketos, but I was really impressed, and so that changed my attitude. Told me don't make assumptions.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that really stood out. Bickman especially. I'm really on a journey to understand all of this stuff because I've never had a background in this. So I got a lot out of just about all of them. And now what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to go back and take 2 full days, which is what we were at the conference. And I'm going to sit in front of my PC. I'm going to replay the audio and go through the slides. And now I'm going to take notes, and I'm going to I call it the Cliff's Notes version. I do a lot of Cliff's Notes version publishing where I'll take a really meaty topic or meaty paper or 2 or 3 research papers and boil it down to 2 or 3 of my pages, what I call dumb it down so that even less can understand it, and then summarize it and give it out to people. So I want to do that with every single speech that was made while we were there.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Can you time travel back to when I was in high school and do that for me then? I probably would have passed a few more book reports that I faked my way through. That would have been helpful.
Isn't that the truth? I wish I would have done something like this when I was in chemistry. I barely got out of chemistry with my life when I was in college.
That's amazing. I will comment, like with Dr. Bickman, his presentation was 45 minutes, which I think that was the longest one that was done. And he
Correct.
just presented on the East Coast all about insulin as well. And I got to watch some of those discussions. And if I'm a presenter, and I know I'm in one region of the country, I'm fairly confident that I could recycle that presentation and do the same thing on the West Coast. Nobody would really
Sure.
know the difference unless an expert was
Sure.
traveling to all of them. What impressed me the most about Dr. Bickman was not only was that presentation completely different and new and something different than I had seen, but you really got to appreciate his ability as a professor teaching college students, competing with them and Instagram. And he was so
Yeah.
dynamic, and everybody, following along in this fairly technical presentation, we all understood fairly well and held our attention the whole time. He was so dynamic. I really appreciated that about him.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've seen him, and Dr. Berry interviewed him a few weeks ago, and I said, "Man, I want to see him at the conference." And I got his book, and I was going through his book, and I didn't get him to sign the book because I could never find him. So anyway,
Man,
no big deal.
yeah,
No big deal.
there you go. We also had a
I had
special.
my
Go ahead.
yeah. I had my first DEXA scan done Monday. I'd
Ah,
never done it before, and I got it done Monday, and I was thrilled about that. Things came out good, but go back. That's not
good.
about the conference, so keep going.
Oh, that's awesome. No, that's great. I just did a DEXA scan recently as well. A Saturday morning was pretty special because we had that panel of the three cardiologists mediated by Dave Feldman. What did you think of that? That was an hour and a half asking questions back and forth. And I wouldn't say it turned into a bait, but there was definitely differences of opinions.
Yeah. My initial thought is we need an extra microphone. We had to steal a microphone from one of the panel
Yep.
for the audience when they asked questions. But I really enjoyed that because you could tell there was some differences in opinions on that panel, but the panel, they conducted themselves very professionally, very well. And rather than saying, I disagree with that, it's this and that, they'd go, I understand what so and so was saying, and my thought is, and they'd give you a little different spin or twist or or a counterpoint without calling it a counterpoint. And if you were paying attention, you'd go, oh, okay, he said this, and now he said this, which is about 60% the same, but there's about 40% difference.
Yep.
Really enjoyed that panel. I think they should do that next year as well.
Yeah.
What
I
about
agree.
you?
I agree. It was the same kind of thing. I try to approach those things, and when people have different opinions, I try in my head to make both of them true. Like what he's saying is true in a context, what he's saying is true in a context. I don't understand, what it's like to actually practice medicine, in particular, like recommend statins. And so one of the arguments that was
Right.
for prescribing statins in certain situations was like the number needed to treat. How many people do you need to treat with a statin to see some benefit? I thought that number was in the 200s. And the one guy that was a little bit more pro statin was saying that it's actually a lot better than that. It's 1 in every 24. And the point that I made to the people that were sitting next to me is like, okay, what if I go up to him, I ask him for $100 so I can go out to one of the gambling tables and find a bet that I can make that's 1 in 24. Would he be willing to take that bet or not? And just with, Dr. Ali bringing up all the side effects and all
That's
the
good.
neuro damaging things that happen when you take a statin to some people, it's an interesting consideration to make before you take those medications.
Yes. You know what? A great parallel. I'm on a detox program right now where I'm taking turmeric twice a day. I'm taking a bromelain once a day, and I'm taking a nattokinase twice a day to get rid of the spike protein from COVID that I know is in my body. And there's no downside. It's like all of these are over the counter. They're all readily available, other than I've been told, oh, well, you might get some oxalates from the turmeric, but
Sure.
I don't have an issue with that. There is no, people go, why are you taking it? You don't know for sure you have the spike protein. I said, because I can do this 3 to 6 months. There's no downside to taking any of these 3 things. And the upside is I know I can rid my body of that. That's way different than a statin and what you were pointing out.
Yeah.
And as you said, going to the casino, would you be willing to do this? It's like, that's an excellent parallel because uh, like I said, there's no downside to some things, but some things could have a huge downside depending on you and your reaction and everything else. So that's a great point, Casey.
Yeah, well, thank you. I thought it was interesting. The discussion was great. I hope they do that again next year. And so, okay, so we're going to have you back on and we're going to do a full episode. Your story is so compelling and you're great to talk to. I love your energy. Just to kind of wrap things up here for today, again, thoughts for next year, anything that you would do differently, things you're looking forward to. Clearly you're going to go back and be volunteering and participating as well. So, thoughts about next year's conference?
Yeah, I've recruited my DEXA scan company. Hopefully, the CEO will see this before I talk to him. But they have a mobile DEXA unit, and I'm pretty far down the road to recruit them to come to the conference next year and make the DEXA scan available to everybody there. I think that would be a huge ad. They probably can't do it for free, but if I can get them to become a sponsor, maybe they do it so that it's 30-40 bucks a person, something like that, and they'd have it available Thursday afternoon, all day Friday, all day Saturday, maybe half the day Sunday, something like that. I think that would be a huge ad. I'm looking for what can we do to build on what we learned this year and then add more for next year. Hydrostatic water testing, a dunk tank might be nice, but but you'd have to have a mobile unit stuff. But anyway, I'm just trying to think of something that we can do that would be value add. A YouTube video on how the heck to use Hoover and and make that thing work. And polls. I did a poll on there that was horrible because I just couldn't figure out how to make it work. And so I want to do a video that people can watch in advance when they have the app and figure out how to use it. Little things like that. So I just sent out a poll yesterday. I know supposedly the conference is closed, but I went on the Hoover app, did a poll, and I just said, if there's one thing that you could do differently next year, what would it be? What would you either add, change, or delete? And I'm hoping to get a lot of responses from that because people are still looking at the app as they still get text or something from people.
Yep.
So we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. Well, good news is that I know the DEXA units do show up at some of these other conferences, and I know they are quite successful when they do. So that's at least good
Oh,
news.
good.
The formerly known as KetoCon, now known as Hack Your Health. I just got an email yesterday that said that DEXA, the mobile DEXA unit, is coming back this year. It was there last year, and I believe they were pretty busy the entire time. So that's at least hopeful, and hopefully it's a benefit to DEXA. I know it's a benefit to the people that are attending the conference, and I think that's a great idea to get feedback to Dave and all the organizers of this event of things they could modify or change or add or subtract. So that's all wonderful. Like I said, Les, really looking forward to having a full conversation with you so we can deep dive into your story and we can get more of your wisdom. But thank you so much for attending. It was so great to meet you in person and hear your story and share some wonderful dinners with you. So thank you so much.
Same here, Casey, and I'm still kicking ass after 70.
Yes, you are. Shari, awesome. We are recording. It is so great to see you. You are the champion of the Collaborative Science Conference on the Wova app. There is a leaderboard that rewards participation, and you won. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I was. So originally when that happened, it was probably a couple of weeks, prior, and I'm familiar with that because with the Hoover app because I used it for low carb Denver because I had just done the virtual attendee, and so it was just I didn't really that time I wasn't interactive because I was it wasn't there. It wasn't I was meeting any of the participants. I just used it for the virtual where you could actually watch. And so I was oh well, I want to talk to people before I'm going to be coming, and so I had messaged some of the speakers that were going to be there, and then Les would kind of beat me, and then I would end up posting something else. He's "Oh, I like your competitive spirit." I'm I wasn't trying to be competitive because I'm actually not competitive that way. So then he just kind of got my dander up a little bit, and so I was well, fine. And so then there it was, and he's "You're just doing that on purpose." I'm well, no, I'm doing what I actually would have been doing and not paying attention to the leaderboard. But now you got me wanting to pay attention to the leaderboard. So It's all his fault.
That's awesome. We will definitely blame him. And you were very engaged, which I thought was really fun. It's cool that the Wove app offered that as a feature and whatever. I know that's not the driving reason why you did that, but you did genuinely want to interact with people. I saw you having conversations pretty much the entire weekend, which is awesome. So what did you think? And especially, I would say, like, as a direct comparison to doing Low Carb Denver that you only did virtually, what was it like to be there in person and to be in a room with all these other people versus getting arguably exactly the same amount of like education, but not being there physically?
Right. It was my rock concert, and I got to hang out with all the stars. That was, when you asked me last time, what my expectation was, um, it was after we had hung up, of course, all the good things that come to your
Of
mind are
course.
after you end up. And I'm like, I think the best way to have described it was in anticipation of going to a rock concert. And when you go to a rock concert, you don't expect to hang out with the stars. You just hope to, be able to just like touch their shoulder or something. And so that was kind of my expectation, but knowing that I was going to be able to um, do more, get a selfie, because I just, knew that they were going to be accessible. And I mean, that's exactly what it was. I got to meet Ben Bickman, and he signed my book. And my 11-year-old was pretty chapped; she couldn't come with me. And so Dr. Barry was really sweet, and he sent her. He let me record him saying hi to her, and so I sent that to her, and that like made her day. And yeah, it was really great to, because I hadn't met anyone other than just like online that was there. I knew a number of people that were going to be there, but I hadn't met them ever in person. And so that was like, it was really cool, because it was like you're meeting old friends, but yet they were new friends.
That's a great way to
So
say it.
it was, I mean, it was just amazing. It was a whirlwind 48 hours. And but it was so totally awesome.
Yeah, it really was awesome. It was long days and the weather was not great. I was hoping to at least get a little bit of sunshine in the breaks. We got very little
Yeah.
sunshine, got a lot of rain and very cold weather there. And I saw you as we first walked into the conference for the first time. I could tell how excited you were. We were all just trying to get out of the rain anyway. But yeah, there was definitely like a certain amount of energy when you're with all of these people, and like you're right. It's like old friends who you've just yet to meet. You know what I mean? Like you feel like you've known these people for a very, very long time. You have that thing in common where regardless of where each of us are in our journey, we share this kind of passion and what we found. And so you're automatically just like friends with everybody around.
Oh yeah, and it's just like so cool, because there I was in my element, and no one thought that I was too geeky or just like shut up. Whereas here, if I'm out and when I just like, oh, did you know? And they're just like, that deer in the headlight look just goes over them, and they're like, sure, I'm gonna go over there and talk to so and so. This was, oh, tell me more. It's like, and so in my mind, I'm like, normally thinking, shut up, and here just like, no, they're actually asking me to engage. This is really cool.
That's great. You talked about meeting Ben Bickman and you talked about meeting Dr. Barry. How were they to meet in person? It sounds like they were very approachable and friendly in person. Did they tend to match their kind of online personas?
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. Like I talked with Dr. Bickman for quite a while actually, and picked his brain about stuff, and then re-verified that I was understanding things that he had stated about sweeteners and whatever. And so, I mean, I think we talked for like 15, 20 minutes. And that was really cool. And Dr. Barry recognized me because we have weekly Zoom meetings. So he knows what I look like, but we had never met actually in person. And he called me cute.
I love it. I love
And
it.
then I got to meet David Diamond and Dom DiAgostino, and I think I talked to them for like 20 minutes and got to pick their brain about my cousin that has a TBI, and ketones would help that and whatnot. So I mean, I regret there just wasn't like enough time to be able to meet Dr. Scher. I wish I would have been able to meet Dr. Scher in person, because I mean that's just another phenomenal brain. I got to meet Michelle Hearn too, and she's like, she is such a love. I just, yeah, I fell in love with her when I read her book, and now both her books. And so yeah, I got to kind of hang out with her and chat with her for a little bit and get a selfie. So that was it was, I don't know, it was just, words can't describe,
Yeah.
they can't.
Yep.
And yeah, it was really, really well run and everything.
Yep, I was incredibly well run. I try to remind some of these people when I'm meeting them, like you really are to us. You are exactly what you said. You are our rock stars. They might not feel that way, and
Right.
they're in their own little spheres and doing whatever work that they're doing. But for us, they were the people that changed our lives, and so I really hope that they kind of appreciate that. And it's so kind and cool of them to be able to set aside time to be able to do that. Were there any presentations that really stood out for you? Anything that you were really impressed with as far as the presentations went?
Yeah, Dr. Bickman's for sure.
So
And
good.
he is always, he's so humble. Like if you were to tell him that he was our rock star, like I think he would turn red. And you know, because they actually wanted him, I guess, to set up like a book signing booth, and he didn't want to do that because he didn't want all the attention on him.
Mm.
And he wanted to just be able to be out there and mingle like he was doing. But his presentation was just phenomenal. I really, really liked Brett Scher's too. His was really good. Um, and there were so many, and a lot of them kind of blend together. And so I'm like, I can't wait for the recordings to come up, because there's one presentation that I know I heard something that I had never heard before, but I can't remember who said it. And I'm like, it had to do with cholesterol and the brain. And I was like, wait, who said that? And so, I'm kind of trying to go back through all of that. But some of them were like really technical, where you need to be able to listen to them like 2 or 3 times. Um, but yeah, I think my two favorite ones were Ben Bickman's and Brett Scher's. Um, I liked Dr. Johnson's too, on the fructose and all of that. That was a really, really good one. And I did not record that one. And looking back, I wish I would have,
Mm.
but it's all good.
Yeah.
I only had so much room on my phone.
Yeah, seriously. No, Ben's was my favorite as well. And then on Brett Scher's presentation, I sometimes get frustrated when people think we're all doing quote unquote the keto diet. And we're just like, you hear things like, oh, you're just melting sticks of butter in your coffee, or you're eating piles of bacon, which, first of all, nobody in this community is actually doing that. They're not melting sticks of butter in their coffee. They might have a little bit of fat in their coffee,
Yeah.
but not a lot. And then you like Brett Scher highlighting nutritional ketogenic therapy as something that is really helping people with severe diseases. This is something that is therapeutic for some people, and I love that he makes that point.
Yeah. I because he's right. It does come with so much, baggage. And that's actually years ago when we got started, I was so anti keto because there was so much, negativity, and you'd see, oh, it didn't work for me because I couldn't drink all those oils and this and that. And I'm like, what? Well, yeah, because people were using it not as something for health, but as a crash weight loss.
Yep.
My husband's cousin did the keto diet to get ready for her wedding.
Mm.
Well, then she didn't adopt it as a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It was just a, hey, I'm quick gonna shed, and that's no different than calorie restricting or yo-yo dieting, because you're just gonna go right back to what got you to the point that you had to do that in the first place.
Yep. Yep. It's very
And
different.
yeah,
Yeah, very different than using ketones and a ketogenic therapy for bipolar or Alzheimer's or some of these more severe diseases. Yeah, I love
or
that.
even just good health, or as prevention, because like my kids we live ketogenically, ketovore, carnivore. For my husband and I, it's for other issues. But for my kids, it's to keep them metabolically healthy and to not let them fall into the junk sphere that, their teammates are in. They're homeschooled, so they don't have classmates, but they have teammates, when they go and they do the sports and stuff like that. And they can really, really see the difference. Like some of these kids have sheer anxiety when they're out there running and things like that, because they're just dealing with, like, they'll black out or they'll get sick and they'll like literally have to stop the competition because their anxiety is so high. And
Wow.
my kids are just like, they just have their bacon, they've had their burgers, they fueled, up on the fat before the race, they take their electrolytes, they know, and they just like, they feel better. So for them, and then like my 23-year-old, it's he's very muscular, he's working on, building his body up. He doesn't like to be called a bodybuilder, but so for him, it's all prevention for them. And so I think, yeah, you still can do the metabolic uh, therapy as a preventative, because if we can start teaching kids to prevent some of these diseases and metabolic issues, then we wouldn't have to use this. It would just be a normal way of life, and it wouldn't be used as a cure, if you will, because we wouldn't get, right now we're in this vicious cycle. We reward kids with food and sugar and set them up for bad relationships with food and type 2 diabetes and all this metabolic junk, so that when they're an adult, then they're going to have to try and undo it. Well, why not just reward them with other things? I don't know, stickers, little non-edible treats when they do something good, and help them have good relationships with food and not be metabolically sick.
Yep.
I mean, to me, my common sense just said that's the easier way, and you're not depriving the children. But society says, oh, you're depriving your kids if you don't get them cookies and candies and shakes. And
Yeah, that's such a good point. I love the way that you approach that. And I love the parents that attempt this. And I would strongly argue the kids, like you said, will choose this. There might be an adaptive period where they miss the sugar, but over time, when they start to notice their performance is better or they feel better, they can pay attention in school and get good grades. My argument is they would try this. So I'm really glad you approach it in that way. We had this amazing time being at this conference. How do you think attending this conference will affect you and your life moving forward?
oh, I have so much. So I've been asked to give a introduction to keto. I am going to call it proper human diet because I hate those labels. A workshop, and so now in my brain, I'm like, oh, this is going to actually spin out into a few different workshops, because otherwise it would end up being like a 5-hour thing, and I don't want that, because I know that there's going to be questions on cholesterol or anxiety or this or that. So it's really helping me compartmentalize the the segments that I want to have it in, and help them build one upon the other. Um, just also helping me with some of the clients that I have now, that we've been working on their anxiety, and or children with the autism. I have a friend who has an autistic child, and he's really thriving eating carnivore. But this will just, some of the things that, like, I picked up from Dr. Schur are just going to help that, even more. And so, yeah, and I love that we were able to, if there was time in the presenter's speech, be able to get some questions and answers, because that was really nice. Sometimes you just want the speaker to expound upon something, and yeah, you can ask him afterwards, but if you can ask then, it's something that could benefit all the people there. So
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll really just help, I think, everyone in general, and kind of get that movement and the real information out, not the fad information.
Yep. I love that. You think about what this was. This was 2 days in Las Vegas. At the end of the day, it was a very quick trip. It was kind of a whirlwind, like you said. You say there's a few hundred people in that room. This is not a largely impactful thing that happened in the world, yet to hear all of these individual stories and people going home and sharing this information, and just thinking all the ripples that will come from just you attending the show and meeting the people that you met and now going out and being able to share it is so cool to imagine what kind of impact each one of us can have, and how the impact that you can have. And I definitely consider you a very dear friend after getting to spend some time with you on the podcast and spend some time with you in person at the conference. I'm sure I will run into you at another one, but for now, thank you so very much for sharing your stories. It was really great to hear your experience.
Yeah, it was great. And I'm already starting to save up so that my husband and I can drag him back next year. And I'm waiting for when Dave sends out, because I'm going to apply to be a citizen speaker.
Excellent.
I don't know if I'll get it or not, but Jessica Apple, her talk just really like hit home to me, because my husband's a type 1 diabetic. And so it was, it was a lot of the citizen speakers, their stories were just so powerful to share, and they give hope to so many. Yeah, they're not like the scientific teaching, but they gave the hope to so many of what they've conquered. And yeah, I don't know. It was great. And I look very forward to next year. I will
I will be there.
Excellent. So will I. I look forward to your presentation if you get approved. That'll be great. So let's start there, Chip. Like, what did you think of the conference now that it's over? It's been about a week since it has ended, but what were your thoughts of the conference?
I thought for the amount of staff and money they spent on it, it was phenomenal. And I don't say that to degrade it. They just did it on a shoestring because it was a fundraiser. And I have been an event photographer for 25 years. So I've been at high end events and low end events, and everybody thinks their event is the best. And this was actually one of the better ones I've ever been at.
Okay. Wow. High praise.
I mean, that they raised like $60,000 for research is amazing.
Incredible. Yeah, absolutely incredible. It really did impress me that they were able to do so much with so little. And again, that's not saying anything about Dave Feldman, but he went way out of his way to say that like the vendors paid for the venue itself. We didn't take any money. You didn't take any money. You were one of the volunteers that helped put the whole thing on. Did you take any money?
No, people could pay to come in that day, but it was all done through the QR code in the app.
Yeah, got
We
it.
didn't accept any money on site. In fact, some people wanted to give money instead of using the computer. And no, you got to do the app. So there's accountability and all that since it is a charity.
Yeah, gotcha. And I thought Dr. Ken Berry, when he got on the stage and kind of like really gave kind of a really great rah kind of speech of what we all need to do as citizen scientists moving forward from here, even he, you could have assumed if you didn't know any better that Dave had paid him to do basically like a 30-minute commercial in his speech. And Dave came up afterwards and said, just so everybody knows, we really appreciate the praise, but Dr. Berry is not receiving a dime for saying all the kind things that he just said.
No, in fact, he paid his own way to get there also.
Yep, exactly.
In fact, I've seen some other events where doctors have pulled out because they're not being paid and they have to cover all their expenses to get to the conference. And they were on the front page, when you signed up that this doctor's going to be there, but they're on Instagram saying, no, it's just too expensive to go and not be compensated. And like you, lose all the money from your clients when you're not there.
Right. Yeah. It is a sacrifice for sure. But when you see people like that, like Dr. Berry, Dr. Ben Bickman, all these other cardiologists who made it, like you realize like they made it here as a sacrifice. Like they gave up a lot to be here. And I'm sure they go to other conferences where they are paid, and rightfully so. They should be. So I thought that part was very, very cool. What were some of the highlights of the conference for you?
Like you said, I volunteered at the check-in stand. And I think because of that, people thought I was involved from day one. But no, once the app came out, I just put a note on there that if you need help, I can help since I do have a lot of event experience. And Sharon emailed me right away, these are the dates I need somebody. Can you come? And I didn't really plan on sitting there the whole conference. But since it was in the room, it wasn't too bad. I got to hear and see most of it, except when I had to go change my accommodation. So I did miss Dr. Berry's speech, but I've heard him before. But I think, like you mentioned, just the impact they make by coming on their own time, and you get to meet these people. I had invited a friend out of Dr. Chafee's Patreon group that had me over for ribeyes the night before, 2 nights before, and it was his first conference, so he didn't even know he'd be able to meet the doctor. So he was like a child in a candy shop. We don't eat candy, but saying, what I mean. But I'm going to get to meet Dr. Bicker. But he kept saying, we're going to have celebrity sightings. And I'm like, well, how many pictures? He said, well, I didn't take any. I didn't want to ask them. I'm like, well, that's what they're here for. So, and I didn't take as many as I usually do, partially because I was volunteering. But I did have a kind of a unique experience. I had what is it called? A CAC score, CT. What do they call that?
CT angiogram, maybe?
CT scan. No, I didn't do the angiogram, just the CT there in Vegas the week before. And as I was helping set up on Thursday, the doctor called me and said my results were ready and they wanted to mail them to Virginia. I'm like, can I come get them? He's like, well, yeah, I'll go over them with you, but you really need to talk to a cardiologist. And I'm thinking, well, I don't have one. Dr. Sher and Dr. Ali were both there. So I did flag Dr. Ali down one day and he kind of explained why I was like a 0 on one artery last year and 300 this year. And he's like, well, it's very simple, actually, or simple, that a person has to look at those scans and then decide where the blockage or the calcium is. So he said that the last year they may have put it in this part and this. So he got a pen and he drew me a diagram, and it's actually the same artery, but it has something that branches off. So they call it something different above the branch and below the branch. So not medical advice, but advice from a medical person that knows what he's talking about. So I
Sure.
thought that was worth the price of admission right there.
That's incredible. Yeah, Dr. Nadir Ali did a wonderful presentation as well, all about cravings and dopamine that I thought was fantastic. And he was part of that Saturday morning panel, which, I mean, you'll just never get that combination of people together again on stage to talk about some of the topics we talked about and get the questions from the audience, which were fantastic. I thought that was a really special moment for me as well.
And that wasn't even planned. There wasn't supposed to be any question and answer periods. Hence
Oh,
why I ended up with the microphone.
oh, I didn't
Because
know that.
if it had been planned, there would have been a microphone set up.
Okay, gotcha.
But David, I guess, I don't know, maybe he didn't have enough questions or whatever, but he just threw it in. His wife, the event planner, didn't know. I didn't know. So
Wow.
people started coming up to we can't hear that, So I went and asked if I could have a microphone.
Nice.
And a lot of people said, it went real well with me handling the microphone.
It was
So I was
great. It
glad I
really
was
it enhanced the experience. And even if somebody was projecting, they're in a venue where it's hard for people to hear. And so that really was good. So yeah, we really appreciate you running all over the conference center with your microphone to give to whoever wanted to ask a question.
And I think it was Dr. Ali that gave up his. So
Yeah.
I could have one. And
Yep.
then he kind of kept moving further and further away from the group. He'd slide the chair. Dr. Shear would have to reach to give him his microphone.
That was great. I'm really glad they made that work. What other presentations? Were there any other presentations that really stood out to you?
Yes. And I don't remember the doctor's last name. It was William something. He was the guy that had the lab company who talked
yeah.
about how you can't take one piece of data. Well, let me back up. He said you could take one piece of data and interpret it, and that interpretation is probably true for that piece of data. But when you add all the other pieces together and you take the big picture, that interpretation may not be accurate for the bigger picture. And that was kind of like a light bulb moment, especially after getting a CAC score
Yeah.
result. And also knowing, my lipid panel and my full blood count and all that, I could put it all together and not freak out.
Yeah. I think that is so important to take all of those numbers into context.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I was watching a video last night with Dr. Ovidia, and he kind of stated the same thing that, you can go in and you go on a low carb or ketogenic diet and all your numbers go up or go in the right direction, except LDL goes up and your doctor goes, oh my God, you got to stop. You lost 100 pounds, your heart rate is lower, your blood pressure, but stop because it's killing you because this one number is off. So that was just a reinforcement not to zero in on one factor when all the others are going in the right direction.
I love that. As far as the people you got to meet, obviously huge honor to meet, Dr. Kamberi and Nadir Ali, but what other standout people that were you really happy that you got to talk to and meet during the conference?
Well, like I said in the first interview, Dr. Bickman was one reason I wanted to go. And I did get to speak to him. Of course, being at the check-in table kind of helped.
That does help. I was thinking that.
You kind of had a little bit of they had to come get their badges and stuff. But I actually went back when he was standing back in the back somewhere and got to chat with him a little bit more. So he was one. I really like the Two Crazy Ketos. I guess I knew about their channel, but I didn't know. I mean, since I'm starting a small channel that's about carnivore, their presentation was so on topic for me, to share your N of one. You got to speak out, don't worry about what other people say, just tell your story. So that kind of hit me like a ton of bricks.
That was a really good presentation, kind of all of our responsibilities as far as sharing messages and then doing it the right way, doing it with the right intention, admitting when we're wrong. I loved that talk as well. I thought they had a lot of really, really good points. And also, in the carnivore community, it's really easy to think that this one thing is like the magic pill and it's going to work for everybody exactly the same way that it worked for us. And so to be very careful about the way we talk about things is something I got out of that chat as well. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, and then she was kind of helping Keto Chow, which was right behind the check-in booth. So every time I went to talk to her, somebody would come up, and then she was gone. So I finally got her right before I had to go check out. Gave me this big hug. I said, "I've been trying to talk to you all," and she was just a lovely person.
Yep, I love that. Well, okay, so it sounds like you've done a lot of these conferences. This one sounds like it was up there. Did the conference meet your expectations?
probably far exceeded them. To get that many what I consider cream of the crop speakers to come and donate their time is really more than anything I've seen in any field I've done events at. So
Interesting.
far exceeded. And Dave, I mean, I had met David Feldman before, but had never understood the sacrifice he makes to make this work. Give up his job, give up an income, just to do research on basically on cholesterol.
Yep. Yeah, we're so grateful for him and all his work. If I had just airlifted you in, it was a conference about anything. Because again, you've been to so many of these. I didn't tell you what kind of conference it was. Would you have assumed that this was the first annual conference of its kind, or would you have assumed that this has been going on for several years?
It was done so well, I would have assumed it was well entrenched.
Yep. Yeah, me too.
That Sharon is a machine. I don't know if she even slept the whole weekend, but she was always spot on and took care of everything.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned having to step out to change lodging. And when you did that, not only did you miss Dr. Berry's presentation, but you also missed Dave Feldman giving his thank yous. And he did mention you specifically as somebody that he thanked by name for all of your hard work. So I hope that makes you very, very proud. And you definitely enhanced the experience. It was so nice to be able to see you in person. And it was so nice to reconnect with you today and hear about your experiences. So thank you so very much, Chip. It was great to catch up.
Well, thanks for letting me know that. I did miss it, but he thanked me all the time. So, he definitely had told me, and I'm glad he knows my name.
He did, but by name, he thanked you in front of everybody, maybe like 3 or 4 people that he thanked by name. So I hope that makes you very proud.
It does. Thank you. And I was glad to do it.
That's awesome.
Kelly was also there with me working the whole time as a volunteer.
Yep. He thanked her as well.
Yeah. And she was pleasant to spend. And I was really glad to get to spend a little time with you.
Yeah, it was great to spend time with you as well, man. Thank you so very much for doing this. It's great to catch up. Mark, really great to see you and catch up with you. Tell us about your experience at the conference. What did you think?
Well, Casey, I had a really great time being at the conference. I got there early on Thursday afternoon before everyone started setting things up. And I went over to the exhibit hall to see which of my friends were putting up booths, and there were quite a few new exhibitors there. So I got to meet a lot of people at that way. What was kind of cool was some of the other people you're having on this particular podcast. One of them lives in Algoma, Wisconsin, which is like 2 hours away. So we've made a connection and said in the summer we're going to have like a picnic, and she'll bring her low carb friends, I'll bring mine, and we'll all meet like halfway in between at one of the state parks. So that's a really cool thing that came out of this.
Oh, that's awesome.
That would have been Sheila Reef.
Shari.
Shari. Okay. So yeah, that was cool. I met another other people here, Les, who's running the Kick-Ass After 70 website, which was kind of cool. We went out and had dinner together. I think you were at that same dinner, the Bacana place.
Yes, so good.
So that was another cool thing that happened with the community. Was a lot of us would find steakhouses and Brazilian steakhouses, or this one Bacana place that just served awesome, like big platters of Bacana, and the conversations were just truly amazing. So it was day of the conference. It was unlike other conferences. The closest I could compare it to is Keto Fest, which Dave was integral with anyway, out in New London, Connecticut. So a lot of what would happen is people would come and present their science. There was a lot of people like myself who, I don't know if you can see here, it's like this is my daily charting of everything I do. People do a lot of the same things, and they draft it and they presented it. There were professionals that were presenting. Of course, I think what a lot of us looked forward to was Matthew Budoff's presentation of the lean mass hyperresponder study, in which he said definitively that LDL cannot be the sole reason behind heart disease. And then when asked whether he would take it, still prescribe a statin, the cognitive dissonance kicked in, and he said, "Of course I would." And there was like this incredulous stare from the audience. It was just like I was surprised people didn't start booing, honestly. But that's how polite we are as a community. Um, there are some other really, really fascinating presentations, which seemed to bond the audience, because afterwards we would talk about it. Afterwards we would discuss various points. So one of them would be David Diamond's presentation on LDL and LP little a and APOB. And he said from the stage that a genetic factor, mutation of the blood, could cause thrombosis, and that's his belief is what causes heart disease. Afterwards, I went up to him and I said, "Would that be factor 5?" And he said, "No, it's factor 8." And I was like, "Dang, I got both of those." And so we talked for half an hour, and I went over my data and all that. And then again at one of the after parties in the evening, guests and would get together like cocktail bars and all that, and discuss things. And because again, I'm the guy who charts a lot of things. I'm kind of like a poor man's Feldman, I guess. I think you saw some of those charts. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I was showing how my LP little a, I can make it go up and down, but when I make it go down, my APOB goes up. So it's an interplay. You can't just go after one thing. And Dr. Diamond was like really impressed by that, because he was like, I've not seen this kind of data before. And I told him I had plans on making a study, and he said that he would, once I put together the study and before I launched it, he would critique it, and then I could do the study, and if it was really something worthwhile, we could talk further.
Impressive. Wow.
So yeah, there was a lot of things like that that were happening. I was watching a lot of people. It wasn't just myself. There were all kind of people out there making connections. Like it was the first time I was able to meet you.
Yeah.
And I could see, that you are the person you represent yourself to be.
Mm.
Right? That you care about people's well-being. You care about people's fitness. That what you're teaching and what you are the same person. And that's what, when we get together like this is what you really find out. Is this really, a persona that we see on the screen, on the YouTube and all that? Or is this really who the person is? And I was really glad to find out that you were who you say you are.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. And I found the same to you. The only difference I would say is you are much bigger in person than you are through my little iPhone screen. You have been hitting the weights hard, my friend. You are jacked.
Thank you very much. And I have to take that with the humblest of um, compliments, because I have worked hard. I'm in the gym 2 hours a day, cranking the weights. You can see, I track that too. You can see the progressive overload just going higher and higher, whether it's weight or volume. And the thing to remember is I'm recovering from a rotator cuff surgery in September.
Man.
This is, and I'm 60. So
That's so awesome, man. I love it. Okay. So you mentioned the dinners and you mentioned having really special conversations at different conferences. I've done different things. So like, for example, low carb Denver 2023, I paid for the VIP events where I could, get more FaceTime with some of the speakers and the people presenting. I had a great time doing it. It was really fun. This time I decided not to do those, and I decided to do the more informal kind of meetup dinners that we said, like, we really raided some of those Brazilian steakhouses, man. We got our money's worth for sure with all the picanha and delicious meat they had. So I've done both. I understand both. It's fun on the one hand to connect with, the speakers and the people that we look up to in this space. It's also amazing to meet other people who are just in, just like us, like lay people who are just there to learn and whatever. You did a bit of both, which I think is a great way to kind of mix it up. You mentioned you had some special conversations at the first dinner, which was the more kind of informal with people in the community. What was that like? What were some of those conversations like for you?
So first off, I've been in the community a long time, so I know a lot of the presenters on a very personal level, and this is more like getting back to just seeing each other in person, where we might talk every 2 weeks or more often. So a lot of those conversations were really more about personal things, and how's your wife, how's your job, that kind of stuff. Because the other times we're talking about the other things. but the people I hadn't met before. I'll tell you a special story about Dom Day Agostino, who first time I ever met the man. And I went up to him, I shook his hand, and I said, "Thank you for your work on the dog cancer series." My dog Hercules, Great Pyrenees, in 2016 was diagnosed with a mastotoma right in his jaw, and I wanted to remove his jaw. And I didn't want that; it was quality of life. And I said, I looked at your work in there, and Thomas Seyfried, and I followed that. I went to the Keto Pet Sanctuary, and we developed a diet based on your work. He was supposed to live 550 days. He lived 1,485 days. I said, so we appreciate that extra 3 years. And he shook my hand. He started telling me about his Great Dane. So, okay, that's all good. And then, there's a speaker we're both trying to pay attention to. So, I'll see you later. We're at dinner, and Tom's like, come here, come here, come here. Show my wife the picture of your dogs. She loves Pyrenees and Newfoundlands. So I do, and we start talking. My wife has Ehlers-Danlos, and Tom says, I have a PhD student who wrote her dissertation on Ehlers-Danlos and a ketogenic diet. Let me find that paper for you. Boom, here's a paper. I never would have found this paper. I never would have looked for this paper. And yet, here is someone in the community saying, I care. I care about you and your family here. And then he just started giving me all these links. I understand those other people. He's like, oh, wait a minute, I know someone else. And we talked for a good 45 minutes. He and his wife, and these are things that you can attend these conferences virtually. You will not get that.
Such a great point. What a beautiful story. You could see that up and down with so many different people, like, again, like making connections and hearing everybody's own personal journey and story about how they found low carbohydrate diets. And it's so, we've talked about this before, where doing a low carbohydrate diet can be very isolating sometimes. You're doing something that's very different. It's against the mainstream. It's, usually because you've suffered a lot. And sometimes it feels like you're kind of alone when you're making orders at restaurants and you're around family and you're avoiding cake at parties. You get together with all these people who are doing the same thing and they're explaining the reasons why they're doing it. It's so confirming, and it just helps you feel like, okay, we are on the right track. This is great. We had so many presentations about cholesterol in particular. LDL cholesterol we talked at length about. After going to a conference like this and reviewing many very technical, studies and discovering what cholesterol does and other purposes and its functions in the immune system, did you leave the conference more confident or less confident in what we've learned so far about cholesterol, maybe possibly not being the boogeyman that we have been thinking it has been for the last 70, 80 years?
Okay, so I felt extremely validated by the fact that with the presentations in both Cromwell and Butoff saying LDL was not the smoking gun. And then during a panel discussion, Nadir Ali's, who was my previous cardiologist, just took him head on. And then apologized for hitting him so hard verbally. I mean, it was like a smackdown. I expected the belt to come out in WWE, and Ali running around, because he really took it to his case to court. And had there been a tribunal there, Cromwell would have lost. I mean, he had his defense wasn't solid, where he would bring up a study and now he was familiar with that study. So I felt extremely validated. And the things that I tell other people about LDL in particular. Now, LP little a, that's a different story. APOB, that's a different story. And there's still things to learn. I did like the nuance that David Diamond brought up, saying, look, LDL can be a problem if you have these mutant factors in your blood, which, hello, that would be me. And I do. But I've reversed the blockage in my heart by CAC scan by 8.2%. I've done some other things, so it's not a hopeless situation. The other thing I would point out is that not only were we validated from the stage, but some of our waitresses, and when we ate in the hotel, first off, you're no longer the freak. You're like, are you part of the group? Yes. Okay. So you want butter, you want cream, right? That's like no vegetables would show, no potatoes or anything would show up. And it's nice not having to explain over and over and over. So there was a very communal aspect to this. The other thing I really felt strong about, and I hold it dear to my heart, is Peter Baller said, rather than giving another talk about environment or, being the sod father and Illuminati, talking about how can we carry this message to a different level. We're all doing it to our family. We're all doing it to our friends and, fellow employees and colleagues. But how can we use systems in place? So one of the things he suggested was, let's stock the local libraries with our favorite books. You like Gary Tobbs? Put it on the shelf. Ask him for it. You like Nina Teicholz? Like Eric Westman, ask for their book. If you're a member of the local school board or you have voting rights, you're a parent, go to the school board and say, hey, I have some questions about why you're teaching my kids this. Can we change the curriculum? I mean, so he's talking about using formal institutions already in place to use a grassroots effort. I'm using I'm sorry, grassroots project to put pressure from the bottom because Nina is trying to get it from the top, right? And Gary's trying to get it from the top, and it's not working too well. So maybe what really needs to happen is really this downward pressure and with a little bit from the top, squeezing them.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Final question for you. So, whatever time you spent, if you missed any work, obviously the cost of staying at the place and everything you paid to travel there, nobody compensated you. Was it worth it? And would you go back if they hosted again next year?
Dave already knows that I'd go back in a heartbeat. As so the last count I heard was $56,000 were raised
So
for this,
amazing.
and no one took a dime. Not one of us took a dime. Everyone that was there donated their time, donated their experience, donated their knowledge. Even people who are insulated in their podcast world. I'm not saying you, Casey, but there are some people there that are just YouTubers, and I mean, it's all content, right? Even they volunteered. I thank heartily the main sponsors, Keto Chow being one. Miriam and Chris are fantastic people. I went to their Salt Lake City Keto Chow sponsored event in 2022. It was just so cool. I mean, just cool that people would do this. And an ultimate story, and maybe this is the one to leave off on, is in 2023, my GM, my general manager's kid was really sick. And he had tried for 4 years to do something and just different diets and nothing would work. And my senior engineer said, talk to Mark. And so he comes over and he says, what can I do? And I said, the ultimate elimination diet is carnivore. So red meat, 6 weeks, maybe some eggs, a little bit of cheese just to break it up a little bit. And, the kid he's a stud quarterback at the high school, went to the state championship after going carnivore, added 30 pounds to his frame. And when he had lost 35, and didn't get sick once in that time. Upon my return, my GM said, well, how was the conference? And I told him it's like this, it was like that. He goes, you might have saved my kid's life.
Wow.
He was near driving his truck off the road. He felt so sick all the time. And now he dabbles with breads and all that, but he knows what to do if he's sick. And see, this is a message I keep trying to carry, is that you don't have to adhere to the diet like I do, and maybe you do, right? I'm keto all the time. But if we just get people to understand that low carb, they can do carnivore as a cleanse, and then go see how you feel on Monday when you eat carbs. It's like a hangover after a big game.
Yep. Wow. Man, I can't think of a better way to finish this conversation. That was such a cool story. This is a special community. I see a lot of the what you kind of observe, the kindness and the willingness to share in this community, and to be there in person, like you said, it is something special. And to get to meet you and hang out with you and feel your energy, it's just absolutely outstanding. So thank you so very much for being a part of this and sharing your experiences. And I will see you at one of these very, very soon, my friend.
Oh, we will, Casey. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So that will pretty much wrap up this special episode with some of the participants of the Collaborative Science Conference. I did want to just add my thoughts as well from my experience, which was an absolute amazing one. Kudos to Dave Feldman for putting on such a wonderful conference. For his first time, he really knocked it out of the park. As I said in the beginning, I felt like that was going to be the case, but it certainly was my experience being there. It was just really cool to be in a group of kind of a mix of people who are conducting the latest research, some of the greatest experts you can find in cardiology and, in research, people like Ben Bickman, who I got to meet in person, which was absolutely a highlight for me, mixed with a lot of lay people, people like myself who found this topic very interesting, have made this a life obsession, and, we're there to learn from some of the greats in the space. And so it was a really cool mix, again, of the experts in the field, the people doing the research, and the lay people. I thought that the level of knowledge in particular from the lay attendee of this conference was so incredibly high. The questions that were asked to the people making some of these presentations, I thought was just super, super high level. They did a really, really great job of staying up on the knowledge and asking wonderful questions. It was a very unique conference in that way. It was really cool to be able to, again, see presentations given by people like Ben Bickman, people like David Diamond, people that have been doing research on, lipids and insulin and all that kind of thing. And also to see, presentations given by lay people. You had the opportunity, if you were attending, to apply to do a 15-minute talk. And so I heard from people that I would never have the ability to hear from otherwise. And they made a lot of really thoughtful and wonderful presentations, which I thought was fantastic. Other highlights for me, hanging out with my friends in this community is just always so special. A very special thank you to Robin and Matt Dobbins. We spent a lot of time together, sitting on the front row. We had a lot of laughs and, spent some time in between the sessions, spending time together. I really love and appreciate them, and I'm so grateful for them to, invite me out to certain things. They've been doing that for several different conferences, and we've been messaging back and forth. Robin, of course, has already been hosted on our show, and I finally got Matt to commit to be on our show as well. So look forward to that. He's lost over 100 pounds at this point and is doing really, really well on low carb. So that was definitely a highlight for me. Other highlights included going out to dinner. We were so fortunate that Les put together the dinners that we mentioned earlier. So going out to eat a ton of picanha, a ton of Brazilian food, lots of really great steak with a bunch of people who, before those dinners really were strangers to me, to be able to meet them and talk to them. It just really, kind of stands out to me that so many people at this conference have a story that is, very personal. It usually involves quite a bit of suffering, and it definitely involves doing something that goes against the grain as far as what our conventional wisdom states. This whole idea that the conference kind of centered around, and all of Dave Feldman's original work around the question of what is a lean mass hyperresponder, meaning what if you chose to do a low carbohydrate diet and you were of a certain BMI, a certain leanness, and all of your markers improve and you feel amazing, yet your LDL cholesterol, what everybody says is the bad cholesterol, elevates, and it doesn't just go up by a little bit. It doesn't just go up to, where a doctor would be concerned. It might be double that number. It might be triple. It might be quadruple. It might get up to 500, 600. Where I heard numbers that I'd never heard before for people with their own LDL cholesterol being sky high, and just appreciating what a scary thing that is and how nervous that would make you, and understanding just like the dilemma that my friend Robin has every single day, being diagnosed with bipolar. She can basically eat a small amount of carbohydrates and have her cholesterol go to normal levels and her symptoms of bipolar come back. Or she can live with very high cholesterol and eat a very low carbohydrate diet, and she doesn't have bipolar symptoms. So that's a very tough decision and a tough dilemma to be in. And so to be in a room with so many people who are trying to figure out answers in that space, people making those decisions every single day, I thought was really incredible and really special. So this is definitely something I'm going to go back to. I really hope that, Dave does this again. He said he's about 90% sure that he will host this conference again. And I really hope that he does, because it was something quite special. I can appreciate how much work goes into something like this. And I'm sure he needed a day or two to take an extra nap or whatever afterwards for how busy and stressful that must have been. But the end product was really something special. And to hear the presentations given and the information given in the latest research was just absolutely incredible. So big shout out to everybody who participated in this event. Also, big shout out to everybody who participated in this special episode of the podcast. I always love meeting new people in the community and spending time with them. And I certainly, that was certainly the case this time. So again, big kudos to Dave Feldman. Thank you so very much for putting this on and giving space for people to talk about this super important subject matter. As always, this is a very isolating lifestyle to live. And so if you feel like you need support, you need somebody to talk to, please reach out to us. You can always go to our website, which is myboundlessbody.com, to book a complimentary call. You can do that at any time. And thank you again for listening to this special episode of Boundless Body Radio.